Advanced philosophy memes. We make good memes. Advanced philosophy memes. Base fucking memes. Advanced philosophy memes. We make good memes. Advanced philosophy memes. Base fucking memes. Shoutouts to Andreas, Deacon, my boy Scott, Pedro, and everyone else that engages on my posts. And Sarah, keep it up, man. You'll get there someday. And everyone else for playing games.
How based is a 5-leaf clover? We haven't even started the show, and there's already 5 gift memberships. I hope you guys all grab them. Good to see you. How are you? How's it going, Chris? How's it going, Andrew?
Good. I've been watching Evil today, the show. It's a pretty good show.
Oh, man, I've been watching not the show Evil, but I've been seeing Evil around the world, so I feel like that's connected. What's the show about?
It's about this assessor for the Catholic Church, and he's training to be a priest. And before the church does any like exorcisms, sometimes they'll send an assessor out first, and if they fill the criteria for demonic possession or something, then they send like the priest out to exorcise. And I was like joking around with my friends. I was like, you know what? Maybe I should train to become an exorcist and banish demons.
I think it's a lot of work. Didn't you watch Green Mile? Like it's always like eating locusts, and I feel like it's hard because unless you do it right, the whole thing with the exorcism is you have to put like it into a pig or like a host child or something.
Yeah.
So if you're not careful, it'll go into you, and then all of a sudden you've got demons, and it's really also hard to spill your ladle full of spirits.
I was thinking that too, right? It's like being a psychologist or something. You know, maybe exorcists need their own exorcists.
Well, unless you have like if you eat the sin and then the monster in you is bigger than that one and you've somehow controlled it, then maybe that could work. It could be like a Spawn situation or like a Ghost Rider scenario.
I should show that Raph is here. I'm in Raph's studio. Shout out Raph. What's up,
guys? How about you?
But actually, hey, what's up, Raph? But Andreas, you're the one that actually put me onto the show because you were like, everybody needs to see episode 10, season 1 of the show Evil. So I watched it.
Evil's the one. That's the show we're talking about where it's like, duh. I did watch this entire show. This is hilarious. I'm like, what are you talking about? The one where it's like it's got that Hungarian or Dutch Canadian girl or whatever, and like she's the Catholic Church hire her because she's an atheist essentially or a psychologist, and that's an interesting show. I like it a lot. How deep are you in it?
I just got to like season 2. It's like spiritual X-Files. I dig it.
Yeah, totally. I've been watching the X-Files again because now with the 16mm prints, it's like I remember watching it again recently, like 5 years ago, and it just looked terrible because all I had was the video print, and which is cool because that's the way I saw it growing up. But it's crazy to watch X-Files now that it looks like a film, like every 16:9 anamorphic, 16. It looks beautiful. And they're making Disney's making X-Files season whatever. The new X-Files is gonna be on Disney Plus.
Matt Kino.
Which is like,
are they bringing them back? Are we getting Fox and Mulder and Scully? Are we getting them? We getting Jillian?
Yeah, they're definitely coming back. I mean, I think they were talking about doing like a reboot without them, but I don't think anyone would be happy about that. I mean, because they're still there. I mean, did you see season 10 and 11 where they're running. I mean, it's pretty good. Like I like it better than ever. Actually, now that like a fat David Duchovny is weirdly more relatable than the skinny David Duchovny. I don't know. I had something to it.
When does season 10 and 11 take place?
So did you watch it? Because it's like 2016, I think it came out.
Okay.
Or is it 2012 or something?
No,
Hold on,
let
me look it up.
Like a long time ago. I think the last time I saw it, like Scully had a baby.
X-Files. Yeah, well, that's like that
was a while ago. Yeah.
Season 10 is 2016, and what was crazy about season 10 was that basically the deal is with the show that the guy who forced her to have a baby, who's basically this like Klaus Schwab working WF CIA mother effer, he aliens are attacking. I think is the deal. It's like far more like things are actually happening, and then the main point of season 10 is a virus hits, and the virus comes down, and everyone's getting sick all over the world from it. And David Duchovny's character is super sick, and he's like, "Oh my god, I'm going to die of this horrible virus." Again, this is 2016. This is not 2019, you know. So in the show, he's got this virus, and they find out that the virus is designed to depopulate the world. And everyone who's ever been vaccinated against any other disease ever, that's where the spread starts.
Nice.
And all of a sudden you get sick from the vaccine that you had. This is the point of X-Files, just so you understand, of the season 10. Not like reality. Don't get upset, YouTube.
Didn't David Duchovny also play in Californication?
He totally did play in Californication. And every time I think of David Duchovny, I think about that time that he made out, Scully and Mulder made out at the award show. You know what I'm talking about?
I didn't watch all the X-Files.
Oh no, it's like X-Files award kiss. Is that what I have to type in to find it? Yeah, right here. Gillian Anderson kissed. Oh, is it right? I'll just show it. Can you see it?
Yeah.
And she even addresses it at one point. Did they show the footage of it?
We had some sexual tension.
There was a lot of sexual tension. Yeah. Basically, this scene right here, she like, oh, come on, bro. No one cares. So she kisses her boyfriend, and then she kisses her boyfriend first. No. Sorry. She kisses David Duchovny before she kisses her boyfriend. She just reaches back. Mwah. Mwah. I mean, and this is the 90s, and this is the way the world was, and it's super fine, and everybody's comfortable with that. But I just, you got to think about that before Californication, too. Californication is like also bizarrely relatable because it's like it's a show about a victim. It's this guy.
I don't remember the plot, honestly.
Okay, so it was a guy. There's a guy that women love, and it's basically at some point you see all of these women. He gets like he can't say no to them because they love him, and he's like a devotee. Serial
toxic relationships is what I got.
It's like I think it's a metaphor for Hare Krishnaism because Hare Krishna. The whole idea is that you're the lover of Krishna, right? That's like the deep thing there. And so he's a devotee to love. And so these women, they need love because they're lonely and vulnerable. So he loves them. And there's a scene where there's like one girlfriend and he's keeping her from his other girlfriend and another. And there's all three rooms of the house. And then they all come out and they look and then they're super angry at him, even though they're all the ones that are doing it. You know what I mean? And it's like he's the victim. And then it's like and that was also the beginning of the sex addict period of Hollywood. Like everyone who's using alcoholic anonymous tactics to justify your sexual addictions and your lack of fidelity.
I mean, if I would also look at like the spiritual subtext, or not even spiritual, just like the subtext of it, maybe it's suggesting like what really reinforces it is the guilt of doing it in the first place, right? Like you do all this stuff, you're unfaithful all the time, and then you're guilty, so you already feel broken. You're like, well, I already did the thing, I already fucked up once. This is just who I am, I guess. This is just what I do. And it could be like drugs, it could be alcohol, or it could be like sex. So I don't know. That's because that idea of like, well, he's the victim. Maybe that's really how every addict really feels. It's like I'm a victim to my own impulses. I just reinforce the shit. I mean, because
I think that's true.
I know what it's like. Like I've been unfaithful before in a relationship, full disclosure, once, and it felt like horrible. It was probably like honestly the worst thing I've ever done. And I could easily see that spiraling out to turning into like, oh, this is just who I am. I guess, I've had dark thoughts like that before.
Yeah, I think that's true. I think a lot of relationships are it's hard to like fix something, you know, after that's happened. Also, that's something that people will struggle with the rest of their life. And it's so hard no matter what. Like if it's that you helped break up the girl to get into the relationship, she's going to constantly think about that. And if you've ever had any sort of infidelity, like it begins on that almost always, which is a problem too.
Yeah, but also it's kind of twisted, because if you don't forgive yourself, then you end up in a worse place. And if you do forgive yourself like too quickly, you could just end up not learning from it. And it's like it's a really tricky thing. And I think maybe it's like the answer is probably solitude, I guess. You know, just
everybody hates that though. I like solitude, but everybody hates solitude.
I love solitude. Yeah,
I'm a big fan of solitude.
I think yeah. This point in my adult life is probably the first time I've ever really experienced solitude. So I've been really digging it.
Well, the real question is, isn't acceptance of solitude a requirement to have a proper relationship in the first place?
That's what I'm told. See, I haven't gotten past the solitude, because I'm liking the solitude phase. So it's like I'm not looking for a relationship. I really don't.
That's the thing. There's all this cool stuff from China. You can buy one of those sauna boxes for like $60.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then you're in a little room alone.
And it's warm.
And it's like
and wet.
It's like being in a womb, you know?
Yeah.
It's great.
And it doesn't help that it's not like I isolate, you know, because like I go to I'm like really into like practicing martial arts, and that takes up a lot of time. So it's like every Saturday night, if I had a girlfriend, she'd be like, "Where are you going on a Saturday night? You going to that stupid dojo? You're always at the stupid." I could like picture it in my head, even though it's just clear projection. Like, I guess like I'm just like aware of my hangups, you know.
I know a lot of dudes will say that.
Sorry to be contrarian, but wouldn't your future girlfriend just be excited and either say yes, get strong, and whatever else, or be like, yes, I
that's exactly right, because a lot of the time you're like, well, this relationship didn't work out, so I should change. But hear me out. Maybe what you should do is date somebody very different than the person you dated, who likes you the way you are.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, no.
Because if you're like, oh man, I better stop being obsessed with dojos because my last girlfriend didn't like dojos. Maybe find a girl who likes dojos. But it's so easy to be like, well, this next girl, she's going to be just like the last girl, right? Well, why? Why are you doing that?
Well, they're also so different.
Well, there was also phases.
Come on.
There was also phases.
People to say that.
No, I'm saying there's also phases to solitude, right? There's you try out the solitude thing, and then at first you're just like, well, I'm gonna see women, but I'm not gonna get into any serious relationships. And you do that, and you realize that's not satisfying. So you're like, okay, now you have a choice. You either sink further into this, or you say, you know what, I'm just gonna stop like seeing women and just work on myself. Then you do that, and then it's like, well,
then they're really pissed. That's how you really.
Well, the wrong ones are, but then the right ones become sort of attracted to that. Once you really start.
Yeah, I think anger and sexual frustration and all those things are probably related concepts.
Well, I mean, this was all weird timing, because this is when I was trying like semen retention for the first time, and that made me quit porn. So now I'm really like, dude, I just really don't want my sexual energy hijacked by like some other agenda. Could be good, could be bad. I just want it to be my own thing,
Relationships are gay. Yeah, that's probably true. I think, all right. But what I was saying with X-Files is then, the whole world's dying of this virus. They realize that the virus, there's like the vaccine that's been created in the X-Files lab is actually part of some transhumanist agenda from some alien race that are going to force everyone to, be like turn into aliens. But it's all about terraforming the earth. And then all of a sudden, I think Scully has the dream and realizes that it's all a dream. And then the season goes back and it's actually a year before it. And it's interesting because they didn't release X-Files for like years. It's like 10 years since they had a season. They put this out in the year of Trump's election period. So everyone was freaking out already. Like, it was like with Hillary versus Trump. And then 3 years later, you have the quarantine and everything. So it was interesting how this was about a dream where people lived through this thing, and then it goes back in time to right before it happens. I felt like that was, if there's any kind of predictive programming, that was pretty predictively programmed,
Well, that was something that I started thinking like at the deepest levels of conspiracy during the whole pandemic and the vaccination thing was like, because before that I was really hung up on whether or not climate change and global warming was like a way that one group of aliens is weaponizing the planet against another group that can't tolerate a certain climate or whatever. maybe how like disease was like a level above that, and like which group is it, and how many different, because there's, you know, however so many different groups that are jockeying for control over like our planet and sort of us as a species, since we're so malleable.
Yeah, the whole like genetically modified corn thing, that you can take tuberculosis and turn tuberculosis into tuberculosis with corn DNA, and then you can eat it like corn. That tells you a lot about what you could do with human DNA too. Like you could turn us into birds. You could do all kinds of cool stuff. If aliens wanted to, you know, then they could genetically modify you into something you wouldn't really need to kill them. Just have them change into a new colony.
Yeah, exactly. Well, you brought up X-Files, and it reminded me of Chris Carter's other show, Millennium. Do either of you remember that one?
What is it about?
It was very short-lived, but the main character was played by Lance Henriksen, and he had some kind of I think he could see like demons or something like that. He was, I think he was like a paranormal.
Oh my God. Way to bring me back. Yeah, long ago. Totally. And
Yeah.
he's also in the show The Keep, right? Do you remember The Keep?
I don't remember that one.
Oh, it's about like Nazis who invade this little town in like Slovenia, and they get into this like little woods in the mountains, and there's this big metal like mountain. It's a berg. It's like a mountain. It's a fortress. It's a festoon. It's some sort of a. It's
Is it
inside
Wolfenstein,
of
basically?
It's like Castle Wolfenstein, but it's from the 80s, and it's got Lance as this sort of like basically the Slovenian people. They get there and there's like there's nickel crosses to keep this thing on the inside, and they're like, you shouldn't go into the mountain. And then Germans like, you can't tell us what to do. You're silly superstitions, and like you can't keep us out. And then they start to realize, like, as they're getting into it, this isn't designed to keep anyone out. It's actually designed to keep things from breaking out. Like on the inside, it's got things that won't let you out. And then the crosses that they thought were silver weren't silver; they're nickel. So why are we removing them? And all of a sudden, it's like Hellraiser. Like you start raising this weird, horrible Necronomicon demon thing that's possessing Sir Ian McGuinness, who plays like this like Holocaustic Jew in a wheelchair who all of a sudden gets superpowers and can walk around.
Oh,
and then the person who has to kill him is the Lance Henriksen guy. It's pretty crazy.
That's great.
But that's kind of different than what we were talking about. Yeah, that's true. So, but like, what was the deal with the show Millennium? He can see the future. He can see prophecies.
I think he could. Yeah, maybe he was gifted with some kind of sight. He was part psychic and part like. There was just this one episode that always stuck out in my mind where it's these 4 demons sitting in a diner shooting the shit, and like everyone else can see them as people, but they see each other as demons. And then so one of the waiters pisses in the guy's coffee, and you know the demon's delighted by it. And he's like, excellent coffee. And then Lance walks in at the end and sees them all, and just kind of like looks on in pity at these aging demons in a diner swapping old war stories.
It's got like Constantine vibes.
Yeah, that sounds cool. I'll have to check it out. Also, I was thinking about this earlier, kind of randomly. I was watching, if you go to my channel, you can see this Metaphysics of Blood, Hemo the Magnificent. This is an old Bell Labs science video that talks about basically the idea is that blood, or the eudaimon of blood, the sort of spiritualist character, Hemo the Magnificent, he wants to see how scientists can really understand the poetry and love and life of blood, and what it is about blood that's so miraculous and spiritual. And then the scientists do, like Dr. Research does this crazy job explaining to him everything about the Jesuit Catholic sort of metaphysical philosophy behind life itself. And they do an evolution story where they start by explaining that the body has the same salt and contents as seawater, a little bit more salt in the seawater. So maybe there's something to the effect of a change in, like glacial melting or something, that were basically big bags of seawater. And then goes on to explain this sort of idea that we are colonies of intelligences, which is kind of interesting to me, this idea that you're made up of like billions and billions and billions of little intelligences, like a way to describe a colony of souls, right? And that the souls at some point started to colonize together, working together, and that those souls created ecosystems that became organisms. In the same way that colonies, colonies used to have everyone do their own job. Cooking, cleaning, and sewing was all done by each individual. At a certain point, specialization starts to emerge, right? The Hydra, this idea of specialization of different souls, the political body. I don't know what you think about that, but I was curious what you think about the idea that you're not just one soul, but like every single cell in your body might be a city of souls, to some extent.
I think about that all the time, how we get by because of the coordination and cooperation of like all these other systems, the specialization of different systems and stuff, whether it be circulatory or nervous and skeletal, all that stuff. And
Osmosis Jones.
Yeah, buddy.
That's a good movie.
But there's also that. Okay, so Chris, before we started streaming, you were talking about if you want to have people accepting differences, you also have to accept hierarchy. Yeah, so it's like, and that sort of Freemasonry or whatever will claim to be the head or the skull or like the brain of the organism of the human race or whatever. But it's like the brain can't function without like, lungs that work and all these other, a skull to protect it and all that jazz.
What you say? That's I'm glad you bring that up. You guys ever hear about that case where this guy had like a railroad spike or something through his brain and he was like able to function apparently or something like that?
Totally. Yeah.
I've heard that. I've heard people who had like their brain is like concentrated in like one part, so all of their neurons are super close together because the brain's mostly empty space or whatever.
And people having parts of their brain removed just to see how they still function or that if they can, right? Yeah.
I mean, I've heard a lot of people say that like your gut is like your second brain.
I think also the idea there's both parts. So your gut is filled with brainstem like behavior, neurotransmitters running from parasites or symbiotes, I think it's a better term. But also this proves that neither your brain or your gut is the computer you think it is. It's actually more like a transceiver, like an antenna that's picking up on the biofield, the mesmerizing biofield around you. So you're kind of non-local in a sense as well, because so much of you can operate without that, but there's big parts of it that can't be rendered properly without the equipment that can refine the data into something that you can manage and work with.
Someone just wrote in the chat, the gut is your first brain. And I was thinking about how that's because that is sort of the system that developed first evolutionarily, according to scientific theory or whatever. And it's like all of our biomechanical energy comes from the ground. So like, even if you're in a fight, all of the force that you're gathering is essentially coming from the ground.
Yeah,
and so our bodies.
That's why they allow fighting in hockey, because they can't ground their weight properly because they're on.
The fight goes on until one of them falls. That's why they're always like holding each other up and like beating each other. It's pretty brutal. But it's like, so these organic systems, at least these organic systems sort of started from the ground up, and then until we developed this sophisticated brain, and now it's like there's all this sort of importance that's been put on the brain because, like you were saying, Andreas, it's like a transducer for this more metaphysical energy. And like our stomach and our gut is like the interface for the material aspect of that. So yeah, I don't know, balance. It's
Raph, you were about to say?
No, I just want to bring up something. So the one thing, what Andreas just showed with the seawater, right? So there's even therapy to like drink seawater. And also, there's the big conspiracy, how much blood would the Red Cross really need if they only knew the proper application of, seawater-like substances to very quickly replace blood. It's also, I guess, it's the substance that's most similar to blood, right?
Isn't it like saline?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I guess there would be more minerals and so on in a particular composition and energy overall, but yeah.
Here's the difference: 80% sodium, 80% sodium in seawater and body fluid, 4% calcium, 4% calcium in seawater and body fluid, 4% potassium in both seawater and body fluid, 2% magnesium in seawater, 10% magnesium in body fluid, whereas 10% of other salts and 2% of other salts in body fluid. So it's the flipping of
Inverted.
the amount of magnesium and the other salts. And other salts is a really interesting one because that's really, when you talk about vital minerals and salts, right? This is a major part of what runs us, is the different kinds of unique salts. And this is a video from 1958. So we know a lot more about salts than we did in 1958.
So what I'd like to bring up with this in parallel is the idea of clay and people being fashioned out of clay. So I recently spoke about this with David. We'll probably talk about this more, this Promethean myth and this whole idea. It's kind of a creationist idea, maybe. Basically, clay plus rainwater or whatever somehow is ensouling individuals and they just spawn. Let's just run with that for a moment. But what I want to look at basically is the composition of clay and how similar clay is. And also, because I spoke about this just today, and only a few days ago on one random channel, some guy was like, oh, buy my super clay because it like keeps you healthy and young and so on. So also the question being, how much is clay compatible with humans? I
remember in Bermuda, man, I was like, so we went to the beach, Brittany and I went to Bermuda, and there was pink clay sand in the beaches everywhere. And I was just like rubbing it into my skin. And I felt like it like killed everything bad and made me new again. There's something amazing about, and Africans eat clay. Pregnant women, I think, African men and pregnant women. Okay, everybody eats clay. Let's just remember, pica's a natural thing. I think. Have you ever had that happen to you, Andrew, when you were pregnant? Did you ever eat clay?
I never produced. I produced humans, but I never baked them.
I really like to imagine you though, like in the reboot of the Arnold Schwarzenegger Mr. Mom movie. I really think you'd be.
What's wild is I went on a date with like this Instagram model in like 2016, and my daughter was like still under a year old. Because I wasn't with like my first kid's mom through the whole pregnancy, but that's a different story. Anyways, so like I guess she like went onto her like girls group on Facebook and was like, yeah, and he like looked really good for just having a kid. And I'm just like,
I mean, also aside from the clay, you could also kind of say like humans are built up of the elements, right? Like earth, water, air, fire from the sun.
No, totally. And what I'm also thinking of, this is, maybe you guys know by now or not, shilajit, this black tar-like substance, which in Ayurveda is said to be one of the panaceas for everything. If you want to get it by now, I found decent suppliers on eBay again. But anyway, and I think this is maybe the more refined or high quality clay, let's say, in a sense. But that's
like a black resin. But I remember telling the story of the cat. So like his dad was trying to give the cat a cookie, and he wouldn't take the cookie.
Not about a cookie. Yes, no. The cats, of course, know what they want to. Cats are great, or animals to check, water quality or anything.
What's healthy,
or meat quality. You even have short videos online. You give cat the Wagyu beef and something else, and the cat, of course, knows what it likes. But anyhow, the fun thing with this is because it easily sticks to your fingers, right? And then I had it stuck to my fingers, and suddenly the cat is coming and licking my fingers. I'm like, what's going on? And then I realized anytime I offer it to them, they will readily lap it up. And that's also then how I kind of proved my new supplier of shilajit, because I'm like, okay, if it's any good, I'll just offer it to the cat. If she wants it, then it will be good. And it's good. So,
I think there's something to it though, for sure. Yeah. Like, I mean, I've been eating shilajit every morning. I do like a little pea-sized wad of it. Like I try to throw it back with coffee because it doesn't taste super good. But yeah, I mean, something about getting those minerals. And I think in general, you're healthier when you have clay, probably, or whatever that means.
I mean, if we're going to talk about like
potential, probably in the end, someone wrote ATP, right? ATP, the energy. This is the chemical translation of it. But other than that, I'm pretty sure it's about electrical potential in the body, and that is just often represented by all these minerals because they have high charge potential, right? And that's also how you can explain different qualities of water because they also have different charge potential.
Well, I was also thinking like
how it makes sense to me.
Yeah, with like earth, with the minerals and water-based like holistic wellness treatments, we'll say, if since everybody's different apparently, and this might be controversial. So assuming that there's like a spectrum of the elements that that makes up humans, like earth, fire, water,
Ether.
what if and the void, what if different phenotypes react differently to like those different dimensions of self? Like maybe some phenotypes will react better to mineral treatments. Maybe some phenotypes will just be better under the sun. You know, like maybe some phenotypes will be better.
Ayurvedic body types, right? Isn't that a thing? The idea that there's different body types.
Maybe some
Probably
people can't have cow cheese, you know.
Yeah.
I think there's
Some
something to that.
people
I mean,
can't drink hard liquor. Yeah.
It's like,
I wonder. I think there are probably more differences. I don't know if this is true anymore. I don't know what I'm supposed to believe. I went to school. They lied to me in school. One of the things they told me in school was there's more differences between a nation, a nationality, or an ethno group. There's more differences between one ethno group than there is in the differences between ethno groups. Yeah. Which, I mean, I don't know how much like go ahead and laugh because I don't know if I believe that completely anymore. I know that but the what's it called? Where you look phrenology. That always seemed kind of silly to me. But there's definitely truth that there's different kinds of hominids and that we are a gene flow of amazing potential of different kinds of humans, going back so far as to say like we're maybe not a biblical Adam and Eve origin story. I mean, that's a huge. Everyone wants. It's weird to me that it's like it's considered not okay to talk about this idea that there's different kinds of hominids.
Well, it's because
then basically you're enforcing the Adam and Eve story.
Now, just to say one thing, because this relates. So if we assume, and I'll just run with the story because I again recently heard this Promethean thing. You know, clay plus water is a human. What we also have is Louis C. Cameron and biological transmutation. There's like old books on this. Basically, the idea. Number one, how the body internally can apparently transmute all kinds of minerals. This was tested with chickens, you know, and you give them certain input, you know how much calcium they eat, but somehow they create a lot more calcium, right? So there seems to be some sort of mechanism here. And also, I believe in relation to that, I read basically some kind of crystalline liquid substance structure. And then somehow, I'm not exactly sure anymore what they did, apply electricity or something. And then over days, some small like particles started forming inside of it. And eventually some kind of small type of flies were like emerging from it. Yeah. So again, this whole question, is it possible? And, you know, conspiratorially, I would say most likely, you know, is the barrier between organic and inorganic really 100% strict? Or can there be instances when there can be a crossover? Yeah.
Well, according to some esoteric traditions like Rosicrucianism, they implied the ability, or among the ancients, or the ability for maybe future humans to be able to manipulate matter with sound. Like our larynxes would evolve and we'll just be able to like conjure people using our voices instead of like going through this biological sexual process, you know?
Interesting. And that's why language was controlled to destroy our ability to use invocation.
And also like
that just be like expressing you know, your God nature. Yeah.
And with all the conspiracy theories regarding like the Pleiadians, like donating us UFOs, apparently like they didn't call that down from like space, or they just conjured that shit apparently using like sound or something. I don't know if like that's all the stories, but a couple of them stuck out in memory. And I always thought that was interesting because that idea just resonates with me for some reason, like literally and figuratively, I guess. Just the idea
I need to phone a friend. I wish we had Noel for this one moment because Noel, we were talking yesterday about Hinduism, or was that today? Oh my God, that was earlier today. That was like this morning. But we're talking about Hinduism, and a major part of Hinduism is sound, right? And the idea that everything is made out of sound, particles and waves, particle wave duality. This is a big reason for the H-1B visa. Just kidding, but you know, like that they understand.
Even if you look at their architecture. It is like a three-dimensional model of a sound
of a cymatic pattern like you would see on sand or something. Yeah. Interesting. And crop circles too. Crop circles apparently are like, if you really like analyze a lot of them, they would reflect like the shape of a cymatic pattern or something, which is also really weird.
But just to touch on that, the whole idea of like primordial forms emerging from this special combination of, you know, maybe volcanic activity, asteroids crashing into this wet sort of thing that has like a perfect atmospheric pressure for a certain type of life to take form, electrical storms sort of adding that element into this like soup of all of these of elements. And then just like the potential for spontaneity of life, because yeah, we could go like I'm my own grandpa. Time traveling aliens or interdimensional stuff is constantly like going back or traversing different dimensions to like fuck itself basically to preserve.
Yeah, because this came up, I'm sorry, one more time, but like this morning was asking like, what do you define karma as, right? And like it's a simple, I've been just gonna say as simple as cause and effect, but so causality. So the idea of time itself, karma is the timeline. It's this idea that if you do this, this will happen. Things happen because you do things. Things happen that cause causality. So it's crazy to imagine. Yeah, if you got outside of time, you'd be outside of karma. Go ahead.
Well, like I was precisely like, what if in higher dimensions, like that lag between causality and event and if outcome just becomes shorter and shorter? Like what would take us like a certain distance or a certain amount of time for something for causality to take effect, maybe in the fourth dimension is just instant, or if faster than instant.
Even like in the fifth to seventh, this idea that you could go from one, like now, this is a now right now. We're having a now. We're in a now, but there's other nows that are simultaneous. And we're thinking about the connection between one and another being karma that you can get from one moment to one now to another now through karma. But maybe there's some way outside of karma. And it seems like the Vedas talk about this, especially the Asuras, which are the Titans, like we're talking about Prometheus, that are able to be outside of time and go from one now to a different now without it making any sense. It's not that you won the lottery and now you're rich. They can just go to the now where you're rich, right? And creating that moment, maybe there's a trade-off. There's a reason why it's super awesome to be karmic, because we can create structure to reality. But there's also probably the trade-off of if you can't do that, then you can do something else where you can just visit with less effect. Because you can go to those nows, but you can't affect anything. Maybe you can only affect things in the chain that have karmic consequentialism. Like if you're a demon, then you speak with someone, and then they change their life, and that affects karma. It seems to me that's the trade-off between existence and non-locality.
Well, so you're talking about like just the difference between observing something and causing it?
Yeah, like in a biblical sense, like we talked about intelligences earlier. It's interesting to me because like the Mormons with Joseph Smith, that everything's built of intelligences that weren't created by God. Even God's built of intelligences that weren't created by God. So that fits into this idea that you're built up of billions and billions of souls, right? But hold on, what did you say a second ago? That you can cause it. Essentially, like the devil can't interact in some respects. There's certain superstitions that believe that the devil can't physically interact in our world, but can
just
whisper in your ear.
Yeah.
Whispering in your ear can get you to interact and can basically puppet a person, get to the point of controlling enough people and enough things to interact in this world. And that would change the timeline, right? People changing the timeline who are serving something other than this grand scheme of fulfilling your purpose and duty, right? Like trying to live your role as well as possible is the spirit being, you're like, hey, I woke up this morning. Who cares if I believe that in my past I was Chris, right? Let's say Chris this morning, you're told you don't have any memories, like memento. You have no memories of your past. And someone's like, you go to the dojo every day, right? This is who you are. This is what you do. Like maybe it might cause a trauma to some extent, but certain kinds of people, and maybe even Chris, would probably just go to the dojo again, even though they don't remember why they do it or who they are, or like they're just told like, oh, they do this every day. Well, then I'm going to give it my damnedest, even in hopes of figuring out and remembering who I am.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think this is why because I shitpost a lot, but when I shitpost about things like consciousness, it still resonates with people because I think consciousness is the interface between like our minds and that whole like infinite possibility realm of whether you could do like demonic things or really good like whole things. And I think really that's like the root of it. And also, like it might be analogous to like biology, how like the human body needs to have immune systems, because it's not like you could ever really keep your body away from toxins or bacteria or all sorts of like potential viruses or something. And you have to kind of build up like an immune system physically so that they don't like make you sick. Maybe it's the same thing with like demonic influences and
Mormons
like,
are hella good at it though. Like they just don't eat anything bad, smoke anything bad, and then they fast to make sure it kills off those things. I mean, there's got to be.
That's the whole question, and it's a common trope, of course. But I even wrote an article about this. Called The Healthy Reset, and I don't usually write articles anymore. But it's because still, if we talk about immune system, it very easily conjures up this combative idea in terms of, oh, me against the environment, look out, there's the germ, there's the bacteria. I love it anytime I listen to someone who has no clue, and then they're like, yeah, disease is caused by viruses and germs and so on. I'm like, how is this supposed to work? How can all these doctors treat all these super sick patients and so on? And strangely, they never get sick. So what I would like to suggest is, instead of having an immune system, we have simply a detoxification system. It's like a cell membrane, right? You need certain density of nutrients and so on within yourself. And of course, you try to filter out the toxins. Problem most people have, they put in so many toxins, their body is busy with only dealing with that. And then also, hint, people can get fat because the fat is just stored away toxins that the body can deal with. And then as soon as you start fasting or whatever, your body starts diluting these toxins again, and people can lose weight. So basically, I think it's not really an immune system, and it's really about combating anything, but it's a constant detoxing system. And just the question is, how high is my throughput of detox capacity, and how much toxification through, from EMF to bad food, bad relationship, bad emotion, everything is put in continually, right? And that's like the gauge, I think.
Well, it's actually funny you say that, because I can't even argue against that, because like people in my own life, sometimes, people in my own life think I'm a freak because I tell them like I only eat once a day and I work out like 6 days a week or whatever. And
nice.
I think that's how it works. Like I think it's when I ate more, my body, it's like the gears were just more clogged up with more gunk,
yeah, exactly. And there's like a sweet spot, I think, and everyone has to realize this for themselves, what type of diet, what type of lifestyle they have, which fits for them. But I would definitely agree, everyone who experiments with diet, you kind of realize, oh, there's a like I said, a sweet spot of like what to eat, how much to eat, how high quality you eat, and then you can actually eat a lot less in certain ways, still get more nutrients and more energy, and just like you said, the system isn't clogged. And
yeah, I mean, I think a lot of time when you got a lot of gut biome, you're eating for two, you know what I mean? Like there's
also good question. Good point.
Gotta feed my parasites.
Or that.
That's the thing,
Well, I mean, energetically.
Also maybe only eat toxins, but there's just one sentence is the other question about parasites. People are like, oh, evil parasite is the Goa'uld coming to get me. I mean, sure, but maybe it's only there because it's eating all the excess aluminium or whatever that you put in your body. And if you don't do that, there's no environment for big parasite to get around.
Also, my intuition tells me like, it is like also kind of like embracing and transmuting, because, even when you like externalize this and, you talk about things like, oh, encountering demons and entities and like in the astral plane, intuitively, I never thought like, oh, scaring it or fighting it or like scorning it is gonna help. I think you're supposed to like embrace it. I think you're supposed to like recognize these things as also creations of God, So it's like you can't really kill these things, but you can't like let it become you either. So you just kind of, it's a visitor.
Yeah. For example, my 6-month-old is teething right now, and the natural response for a tiny infant body that is starting to push freaking bones, well, not technically bones, but you know what I mean, it's like they're cutting through, there's an open wound, but the body knows that it's going to benefit from having these teeth, so it's willing to up the temperature a little bit to be able to fight off whatever infections, because these wounds are necessary for growth and development. And then you just kind of, it's like, how much do you treat the fever? You gotta let them be able to fight off the infection to a certain degree, but it's like, but also you want them to be comfortable.
Look at this lovely sweater. You know what I mean? That is a nice sweater. That is just.
This is a nice sweater.
That's super good. Hey, Kurt.
Hi,
Kurt.
everybody.
I know, Kurt. You're like you're going to the beach. You're at the beach. You're living the beach boy lifestyle, and you're busy. You're busy beach boy.
Good vibrations.
He looks like he looks like he took acid and went to a hospital.
Dude, yeah, he looks like he's getting sleep and he's awake at the same time. It's great. So much sun-kissed skin on that popsicle. What's been up with you, Kurt? Tell us about your life.
I started playing chess. I played some games with Andrew. Those were a lot of fun.
That's a good way to lose weight, actually. You can digest a lot. It burns a lot of calories to play chess. No one tells you this.
It's frustrating how like
Only if you're stressed.
how close in skill we are, but
Slavic.
better Kurt still is than me.
Oh my god, really?
It's been close games every time.
You know,
Like,
I
Kurt
could imagine
comes out
Kurt
on
would be
top.
good. Like, even if Kurt weren't as smart as Kurt is, because Kurt comes from a football town, and a lot of people overestimate what chess is. Chess
I think he
is
just makes better choices. in
chess
life.
isn't just about being like pro-choice. Chess isn't just about being smart. In fact, I think it's not even about being smart. The only thing it's about is memorization. Your average valedictorian, you know, like the normie kind that can get through woke school, they can probably play chess. It's not like some superpower.
It's a game.
No, it's a memorization.
Yeah,
of
but I mean,
patterns.
it's a game. It's a closed circuit game. Like it has its limits, you know, and those limits is what gives it its quality.
If somebody plays one move, you need to know what moves there are to play back. There's certain moves that go with other moves. It's like a language.
I think Kurt is really good at playing the long game, and so he's gonna basically achieve everything he has ever dreamed of. Is just a long-term plan.
Yeah,
And
that sounds a lot like sword fighting.
So life chess, you know, like he sacrificed peons early to get the win in the end, kind of thing.
Yeah, just don't
Kurt
like
doesn't
careful
like
what you want,
sacrificing
Kurt.
pieces. Kurt
That's
hates
what I'm worried.
the way.
Andrew,
Because he respects the pawn.
Andrew, you're collecting peons. You know, you're.
Kurt doesn't get rid. He doesn't like getting rid of pieces. He's a conservative, but like he thinks at least 4 turns ahead. So
Yeah, he makes the right sacrifices. That's what you have to try to do.
yeah, he set me up a couple like every time pretty good. I put up a good fight.
Chess is crazy. I played so much last week. Like I didn't really play. I never even learned like the full rules until like last month. But yeah, it is something because like you talk about pattern recognition, but really now that I'm starting to get into it, it's there's different formats, of course. Like rapid has several formats, and then there's like traditional where it's just long form and you like memorize openings and such. Or where am I vulnerable here? But like I realized there also is such a psychological element to chess. Like you basically get a little read on the personality of your opponent, which I'm not saying. It's just very unique, and that's why it feels so much different playing against people than it does robots. Even if the people are as skilled as the robots, there's a tempo that they do, and you can kind of get into their thought process as to why they're doing certain things. So that's where there are certain states where if you played like a computer and you played perfectly, if your end result is winning, you don't have to play like a computer. You can just like stay up in material and do the theoretically less viable plays, and that's why there's sort of an artistic element to chess as well. And I say this as a person that I don't know what my true elo is. I'm probably somewhere
Grandmaster.
like I am a beginner, but there's a lot to learn. You just learn you learn what to avoid and not how to get easily checkmated. But
well, Kurt, if you're that good at chess, and like you can travel anywhere basically to chess competitions, make $4,000 to $20,000, and I mean literally, like there are chess competitions I'm serious. Like go to Budapest,
You could be a YouTuber.
go to
those
Mallorca.
people are crazy good.
Well, Kurt's crazy. I think all of my friends are crazy, aren't we? Like, I think you could do it. That's probably worth your time. I think, especially.
I've been wondering why his rating hasn't gotten better after beating me 4 times.
Yeah, what's the problem there, Kurt? How do you have to say yourself?
We were playing like what 1 day or 3 days. Yeah, I don't know how that rating system works. I know if you like. My issue when I'm playing rapid is like I've gotten so used to just like thinking through my plays that if you play 10 minutes, that'll eat up your time so quickly. So you can be up ahead Yeah, that's the lame part is that you can be so far ahead and just lose by running out of time. Yeah. Which if your opponent just has a king on board, like that's a draw. But if they have a king and a pawn, literally you just lose, which doesn't feel like it accurately represents what's going on in the chess game. Sorry to elaborate there.
But it's like Dungeons and Dragons. You know, you've got like your figurines, and you have to remember that if this was a period of 5 seconds or 30 seconds, that's really more supposed to be like a day of battle. And that in the probability of a battle like that, if you weren't prepared and you didn't move quickly, they would have moved quicker and defeated you. It's the entire, you have to imagine, you have to conceive of chess as like men on the battlefield, which is what kind of you do already. Because obviously if you're like worried about losing a pawn, you know, you're already worried about losing a man.
Do you own a chessboard?
I'm probably going to buy one now.
Yo, chat, can we get Kurt a chessboard, please?
Dude.
Themed chessboard.
Kurt, if you come to my parents' house, my dad has like a room in his house. There's nothing but chessboards. It's kind of ridiculous. So.
I would do boxing chess.
Have you guys seen that chess boxing? Yeah, they do like.
I think Andrew would beat Kurt if it was chess boxing.
There is a new video game.
If you hit to the head,
I don't know. It'd be close.
FPS chess. FPS chess
like
is pretty good.
Years ago, some kind of live enactment of chess where they used like real people on a huge board. I just recently.
Oh, that's not even long ago. I did that. I was about to mention. I did that in Salzburg.
That's Wizards chess.
Yeah, and in Croatia, they have. You go to many parks. Plenty of parks have that. Have you played first-person shooter chess?
Yeah.
You ever play 5D chess?
With time shift, you know the chess, multi-dimensional chess. You know about
that?
Yeah.
I've seen that now. It's like where the pieces are like magnetically. Yeah, they're like magnetically stuck.
First-person chess, FPS chess is pretty cool. Can you imagine? You gotta take that, you pawn, and you have to worry. You have to do. Oh, careful! You're gonna knock over chess pieces. Oh, this is.
Oh shoot! You have to not hit your own pieces.
Okay. This, but with real guns.
That's where chess is going. I'm pretty sure.
That's chess with chess hair.
Yeah, you're gonna see it on DraftKings available for betting.
Yeah, it'd be after those slap fights.
Yeah.
So how does this work? The multi-dimensional chess?
No, they have a board game version of
this.
I
don't pretend to understand it. So.
Oh my god!
It's a game you can get on Steam and you can go crazy playing. Chess
literally 5D chess.
Yeah. You can get timelines, like separate timelines for per move.
Is there like a Star Trek?
No fucking way, bro.
Yeah,
this is amazing.
Just say what Janeway says. You know, don't bother me with that time travel stuff.
Oh yeah. Star Trek chess is pretty
just
good.
Like technically just like move all your power pieces up to a certain board and then just like control each board as you get? I mean, yeah, you're the ones where you don't have all of your like good pieces might be weak for a few turns, but
Star Trek chess, I think everyone wants to play Star Trek chess until they try it, and then they realize it's actually not what they think. But I mean, I don't know. If anybody knows anybody who's good at Star Trek chess, at 3D chess, I want to know. I haven't played this.
Oh my god.
This is what blows my mind. I looked up, if you look up a mathematical calculation of the total possible games of chess played, it's already like 10 to the 120th power, like at least. And so you take that and it's like, why do you need to make this game more complicated? But, you know, to each their own.
Yeah, speaking the game of Go, right? I think that's the one that, you know, even AI, right? AI was good at chess in the 80s, right? Like it was pretty early on, but AI still has a problem playing Go because Go has just billions and billions of possibilities. So it's something that even now humans are still better than AI at playing Go. I think they're maybe just starting to get to the point where they are competitive, but it's really complicated of a game. I think that's the next one that is hard to conquer.
Well, you know, these are all closed like 2D plane games. So
And
obviously
they're
it's
all finite state systems, right?
like
Yeah.
it's so simple.
game.
It's finite, right? So it's like it's so simple, but its complexity is stacked through its simplicity. While if you add an entire other dimension, like in say like any shooting game or any other type of game, really, then suddenly it becomes that much more complicated, and it has to deal with that much more. Like it was good at it in the 80s because of that simplicity. It's so mathematical that you can approach it with pure math.
I mean, it's finite in the same way that a Google is a finite number as opposed to being infinite, but it's still like pretty variable heavy.
Sure, but the thing is, like, it literally has a limited amount of space, right? So, like, that limited amount of space means a limited amount of actions that can be done. Even if it's in the millions, it's still way less than if you had an entire plane of dimension, like.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So it's like that complexity. It's still
But
trying.
isn't
to master.
chess anti-Semitic by nature because of Bobby Fischer? Just kidding. I don't know.
Well,
What do you think about-
it's colonialism and empires and. It's a lot of Masonic stuff. A lot of
It's very
I like
pro-trans.
that
pro
phase.
trans. Oh,
You
it
gotta-
is. It is very pro trans.
Yeah, when
Because
you're
the pawns can become queens. Oh my god!
Oh my god.
I never thought about
Hey,
it.
what? But what? And not. What if the pawns are girls to start? You know, they never were gendered. They don't have dicks.
What, you think they're female soldiers? You're very progressive. I think it's.
Well, when
possible.
you promote your pawn,
Well, it depends. Are you playing with friends?
They do look feminine, though, don't they? If you think about it, they're curved like a Coca-Cola
Yeah,
bottle.
those are some titties on the top.
So ultimate chess really has nothing to do with changing the game, but like raising the
Peons are
stakes, right?
actually-
Like if you lose at chess, you die. That should be the new rule. Like it's illegal to play chess unless you
Yes.
put your life
If you
on
die
it.
in chess, you die in
Yes,
real life.
smart.
Oh man,
Like if you
Lucky
lose this
Palmer
game,
was-
I get to take
Lucky
your
Palmer
life.
wants to play that kind of chess.
Look.
Peon,
Start.
we're gonna say French.
Just one step at a time, though. We got to start with first-person chess, and then we can do boxing chess, and then maybe execution
chess.
chess. But like that's in like 500, maybe 50 years. You know, depends how dystopian.
But like, I mean, it seems like I want to
Well,
make
we've
a
got
TV
Squid
show.
Game already doing shit like that.
Let's make a TV show about
Okay.
Kurt. We're gonna dramatize it a bit. It'll be about a boy from Pennsylvania who's good at football. Let's change it a bit. It'll be
Whoa.
about Louis Mangione Kurt. He gets hit in the spine. He can't play football anymore. But damn it, if he's not the best at football plays, and he's got that book, he knows all the football plays by heart. And then he finds out chess is just like that. Chess is just you play this football play when they play that football play. It's basically chemistry.
But what about casting, though?
The King's
Ryan-
Gambit.
Ryan Gosling.
I don't have a problem with it. I think Ryan Gosling. Yeah, I think pretty
Yeah,
much.
they could pull it off.
Who would you want to play, Kurt? Who would you have play?
He's a good enough actor to play a complex.
Leonardo
character.
DiCaprio is the other one. I can see
No.
DiCaprio.
Leonardo's
'Cause it's
too,
like-
too horny.
Because I can imagine at the end of his life, you know what I mean? It's like he's an older man, and he's got to fight with Bobby Fischer, and he has to like give Bobby Fischer a new foreskin or something like that. That's the end of the movie.
Danny DeVito.
Danny DeVito and Arnold.
Who's the guy from the
Schwarzenegger.
King's Speech? Who's that guy? What's his name?
The King? You mean the British guy?
Yeah. I feel like he could do
what's his
Kurt.
name?
Colin
He could do
Firth.
Oh.
Kurt. Yeah, Firth.
Colin
Dude,
Firth?
Firth as Kurt? Yeah, I
Yeah.
can see that. That'd be the thing right there.
I
like
can't
it.
believe I actually remember that name. I guess.
Yeah.
I was
I
thinking
think-
maybe Ethan Hawke. He's
What do you
pretty.
call him?
British.
Dude, Ethan Hawke.
British
Tom
actors are all
Cruise
such
as-
Wait, who
Kurt.
played Professor X?
Patrick
Oh,
Stewart.
Cumberbatch.
The
Oh, you're
younger
talking
one.
about the younger one.
Yeah.
Uh,
Cumberbatch.
Not
uh,
Cumberbatch. No, it's not. That's Doctor Strange.
Oh,
Think Professor X. He
still, I
played
can see Cumberbatch playing Kurt. I can see Cumberbatch playing just about anybody. He could do O.J. Simpson. You know. Cumberbatch is
God,
incredible.
he was in that M. Night Shyamalan movie. What is his name?
Yeah. Sorry.
Everyone
think-
wants to know about the butt plug IO.
James
You remember
McAvoy.
that, right? The chess.
James
the chess butt plug.
McAvoy. Sorry. Yeah.
Yeah. So go for it. James
What do you guys
McAvoy,
think about?
Kurt.
What do you guys? I know this is a long time ago now, but like just since we're here, what do you think about the Magnus Carlsen butt plug cheating scandal in chess?
I don't know
they-
how that would
How did he
even
get
be
caught?
possible.
So
The thing is, you could do it through Morse code.
yeah, let me show you actually since you asked. You go to buttplugio, and this is an open source sex toy standard software for effing machines. Here, look at this one. Oh my god.
How could you play? You'd have to be so good at Morse code to be able to decode like, the letter that represents the piece
Sure.
and the number. and
But
the
you know,
letter-
high level chess players might be able to do it.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
K4, you know, and certain
might-
This
like,
isn't-
vibration
this isn't-
whistles for each piece.
It'd
This
be
isn't
easy
like-
to just be smart. I mean, fuck.
Like
Yeah,
this isn't
there's
like a high school competition. It would have been funnier, but you know.
You know those guys who could play chess without ever looking at the board?
Yeah, like
No,
they
yeah.
got everything memorized. All the
Oh,
moves.
yeah,
Yeah, I've heard
Yeah,
of
yeah.
prisoners do that. Prisoners memorizing the movements on the boards, and then they just yell it at each other.
Yeah.
Autism, extreme.
Sunk my battleship. Oh, wrong game.
I guess, but it's more so boredom. You know, when you're understimulated, your mind will latch on and like will just absorb.
I'm gonna be the
things.
best hacky sack player on C
Yeah,
block. You guys have no idea.
If all you have is chess, you might be able to do it.
But Kurt, you don't feel like you're good enough to go to Mallorca and win $20,000 playing chess? And
What
what,
if
do
you
you
had
think
butt plug?
separates you from that? No, I mean, not even just what separates you from what you think of as the great chess player. Why are you not that? What's the difference between you and him or her?
I've been playing for 2 weeks. That's primary.
Lack of
Like,
practice.
yeah, you gotta at this point. Yeah, I don't know. I think it's hard to see the total horizon if you get into something new. But I've been gaming like my whole life. Like I've been playing the most unprofitable game ever, and I've been playing Yu-Gi-Oh.
Yo, we were just talking about Yu-Gi-Oh.
Yeah.
Chess is just really simple StarCraft. So
No, I think I could get pretty good, like tournament ready, like beginner tournament ready within a year. It's like when you look at, I think a lot of great players of the game. It took the really, really good players that had a real knack for it. They could be, I forget all the levels, but maybe Grandmaster in like 10 years. I don't know. But you can make I think a decent amount of money at lower than the Grandmaster level in a variety of ways, but it's definitely a much more viable option than playing a lot of other things. Like,
What if you just took a bunch of acid? If you just took a lot of psychedelics and memorized chess games, you know, until you could see it from a fifth-dimensional awareness above.
Okay,
Andreas, I'm sorry, I love that story. What you were just pulling up, that Flatland shit. I've seen like a couple of different versions of that movie. I love it. I love
Dude,
that.
have you read there's a book actually?
Yeah, Escaping Flatland.
Totally. Yeah, and Flatterland is the sequel. I
so good.
think this is kind of what makes you good at chess. If you can see the game and you start to see like this is, you know, chess is like you said, like a 5D game already, because you're thinking about what moves could be made and you're starting to limit, like it's a range of collapsing probabilities. You have 10-dimensional, it's just basically space-time. If this happens, these are the things that could happen. If that happens, these things can't happen anymore. A new range of possibilities open up. So you have to keep in your mind, like, these are the Tchaikovsky reaction or whatever, you know, Carlson play or, you know, Stravinsky.
Yo, you want to hear something crazy? That's actually exactly how I think when I'm like sparring. That's actually how I got good. Because like when I'm like, it's not like boxing, you know, because boxing.
If he gives
like,
him the left, you give him the right. No, but
yeah, but no. But in boxing, you could take multiple hits. But if you get like cut once in a sword fight in like a duel, it's usually considered over.
Right. Yeah.
So it's like,
chess, yeah.
So we're thinking it's like, all right, is he going to react to this? And if he reacts to this, can I exploit that? But he's going to see that coming and just get me anyway. And it's like, you know, when it's at a higher level, you see like them like really standing still before like going in, whereas beginners just go right in and just like get pretty messed up. And
well, that kind of ties into all this discourse that recently happened with lightsaber duels and how it's a very honor-based fighting system, because it would be considered poor sportsmanship to like turn off your lightsaber as someone is like making a strike, so that you could like, you know, just subvert the whole causal, like, oh, they're going to defend this move with this. Like if you look in the sequel trilogy, they're you could tell that they're fighting using the force because they're thinking like 5 or 6 strikes ahead. It's like, oh, I know that he's going to defend this with that, so I'm going to do this with that, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
I mean, I've read all sorts of like flowery philosophical stuff from like old school swordsmen, and they always say stuff like you gotta before you even strike, like you fight 1,000 duels in your mind before a single strike. So you're basically saying, it's like, all right, I could do 1,000 different things. Which one's gonna like lead me to not die? So yeah, it's like that's kind of what I was thinking when I was like, yeah, we should play chess, but the loser actually like dies, you know, like that'll
I'm
be
not
exciting.
sure if this is like a circle back or not, but crop circle back, you know, because we talked a bit about this idea, and I feel like it's similar that harmonization and chess moves, even this idea of like you can make a perfect symmetry or understand perfect symmetry, something that's aware from a higher dimension, maybe like sees multiple moves ahead of time. That would be, you'd be, I mean, imagine that if you could, if you were outside of time, chess wouldn't be that fun. Do you think? Like if you were Q and you were playing
of course,
against
it's all boring.
Q, could you? Yeah, what would you do about that? Like because you know the moves are coming, right? Or is there could two people that are outside of time?
Of course, in chess is one thing, but let's say you're in a real fight and you have the advantage of seeing like 1 second into the future. Like you can dodge hits, you can do things that like 1 second makes a huge difference. But in chess, like chess is kind of boring to watch, you know, unless you're into it, unless you're really passionate about it.
Well, that's what I honestly, when I see streams, I don't know why I just got interested. It's like, what do these streamers do when they're streaming themselves watching chess matches? And then I noticed like there's a point in the game. There's like a tipping point. And I would say this is just about when each swordsman decides on what their move is going to be. There's like, you see the series of moves unfolding and the game's not even over yet, but everyone watching is like, oh shit. Oh shit.
It's like that moment in anime when the strike happens and then everyone goes, what? And then someone explains every single step of it and it takes like longer than the actual movement that was made. So I mean, but having an honor-based like harakiri system integrated into chess is a little much there. But maybe, you know, I remember hearing Alan Watts talk about how the goal of nations, of civilized nations, was to create a surrogate for war. And so the idea is that you can test the value of your civilization using simulated warfare through games like chess. Like with chess, you can gauge the intellectual level of a civilization and its discipline and like a whole range of things. Same for boxing, same for everything else. So maybe that can be pushed like into new directions, and you know we can make a sacrifice aspect eventually, but I don't think that it's necessary. I think that the loss itself, like you don't need to kill yourself after you lose. I think that's a little much, like you know, like the honor, you know, but like they put so much importance into the sport that they do or the fighting or whatever it may be, that if they lose everything, suddenly death seems preferable. But I'm like, hey, you know, there's more things to live for than honor.
I mean, even a lot of duels, like in history, like a lot of them didn't end up in a death. A lot of them just ended up with a guy like getting poked in the gut, and he's like, "All right, yeah, I'm going home. Screw this. You win. You take it.
Like, not worth it. Take the castle. Take the woman.
Yeah. You got it, bro. You got it.
Everyone's got a plan until he gets stabbed once.
Yeah, exactly.
You're like, okay, I think I'm good.
So what I'm taking away from this is that the Winter Olympics is racist because it was formed so that only wintry places could compete in them, and they didn't want to interact with,
I think even further, the winter itself is racist because only the elite can survive.
I think summer is racist because it's hot and only black people like it. The sun is like the sun is racist. The sun is racist because it burns white people. So.
Well, it's easier to keep cool than to keep. It's easier to keep warm than to keep cool, or so they say.
Well, you know, I don't think the Winter Olympics is racist. It's more like, hey, we have a bunch of snow, we have sports. Let's do it, you know.
Yo,
and you know the one. It's like if like the ones that don't have winter, they could choose to compete or not, and they choose to do it. So it's like, yeah, get your bobsled team if you want, but like you're probably gonna lose. You know?
Funnily enough, my favorite Winter Olympic sports are figure skating, and Canada like dominates this one competition because there's like two pairs figure skating competitions. There's the technical contest, and then there's the more like musical dance choreography one. And the last one I saw, like Canada just ripped it. It was so sick. I saw some crazy shit.
Well, the government
they're good at following the rules there.
Yeah.
and they make up rules to sort of penalize like arguably more athletic competitors. Like there was this one black figure skater chick who did like a backflip or something. They're like, that's so dangerous, it's an illegal move, not allowed to do it. It's like, really, it's just because nobody else is fucking backflipping on ice skates, you know?
They don't have the they don't have the physicality.
That's the thing. When someone does something so new, like they have
Michael
to
Jordan.
assess like the risk versus reward. Because the thing is, like when it comes to gymnastics, it's only gotten more and more intense over the century. Like if you compare modern Olympics to Olympics like at the early 1900s, the standards for what counts as a 10 is completely different. But that also means that the risk for these kids, because they're kids, is much, much higher. If she botched that backflip, she might die. If a bunch of kids start imitating her, they're like, oh yeah, I'm gonna start doing backflip. We're gonna do double backflip. We're gonna, eventually a lot of kids are gonna die. And it's like, okay, at which point, where do we want to push the level of how difficult it is and the risk for it? And like the reward isn't even that high for winning an Olympic medal. So like, is it really worth getting paralyzed for life because you decided to up the standards and make it that like you should do a triple sal-cal or something? Like you should be doing things that are so incredibly dangerous and keep upping the stakes over and over. Well, maybe
you're 17.
Not, I don't know. But I agree. By the way, I agree though. A backflip on skates, fucking badass, and she should have won. So
well, I think there's certain things about the athlete's most deepest emotions, right? For some people, it is all about the glory. For some people, it's just something, I don't know, maybe it's love for the game,
I agree. I think it's just when they don't pull it off, you look at the corpse and you go,
What do you think is the meaning of being a child athlete, Kurt? Do you think that it's good to burn bright young and like, what do you call it, where you peak young? What do you think about peaking young?
Who's that? Is that a Chinese gymnast, Peking Young?
Oh my god,
that's a good one. That's a good one. I like
that. Sports are just, I don't know. I really question the actual value of sports across the board to society, because we'll take someone like Michael Jordan. A lot of people like Michael Jordan. Yeah, it's people tend to also be kind of defensive about, if they're really passionate about Michael Jordan. It's like if you literally, it's like he's a god. Like they will proudly say that, but you can't like criticize him as a person because he's already achieved that godhood. It's like, well, maybe he should drink less alcohol. Doesn't matter.
Okay.
He won championships.
Bro, that guy could pull off the Hitler mustache. That's how much he became like a cultural icon. He literally went like, I can do this because I'm a god.
The flip side of that, you get a lot of these athletes like Michael Jordan. I think he actually experienced an existential crisis once he had his athleticism taken away from him. So
it was called baseball.
No, it wasn't even baseball.
It was Space Jam. Space Jam was literally the
he got very
ritual.
humble. After the baseball thing, he got super humble. Like he became more. He's
like,
still not as humble as
make
most.
me
But
what I am again.
He thought he was a god. He thought he was like, oh, I'm omni-sport. I can transfer to any sport and be the best of all time. No, he's a competition addict. He was addicted to gambling, and so everything is a gamble.
Yeah, but like there seems to be a dark element to that, of course, because he's still like doing things like making his companies like make documentaries about how great he used to be. It's like, does that sound there sounds like there's something just off about that whole process?
I don't know. I wonder about it because, like, imagine you're like Paris Hilton or somebody who sells your soul because you're like a trailer park trash. And you're like, I wish my dad owned that hotel in the corner and every hotel in the corner. The devil makes that deal.
I love this.
What was Michael Jordan's deal? Because obviously he made a deal, right? Like number 23, the Bulls. Like, let's be real, he probably sold his soul, but it was just to peak while he was young or something. I mean, it seems like a lot of people get killed at 29 and they're done, right? Or 28, like Kobe. It seems like, yeah, dude. He's like, I think whatever deal he made seems to be working for him. He's still around.
But the thing is, like you were saying, there is a problem with sports, and it's not sports itself; it's the entertainment industry around it that creates idol worship and that creates these sort of like grandiose personas that are so over the top that like they literally become deluded about what they what they actually achieve.
But at the same time,
the thing is that it is very important to have sports because it does inspire people to focus and to have discipline and to work hard towards something. It's like saying we don't need martial arts because martial arts are violent. Well, sure, but the point is that you have the self-mastery and sports
we looked at epigenetics. Sports give you good epigenetics because you have people breed. Like, look at Argentina. You have not just sports, but even soldiers. Like, you have soldiers and cheerleaders breeding for 1,000 years until they make the most beautiful, strong people. And then Israel's doing that now. Like, I
also want to say the most unethical in this regard, like what you guys are talking about with like commodification and everything. But the most badass sports I think that humans have put out is motorsports, because that like adds this crazy dimension of like
America for sure.
Yeah, because like it's the physical.
Leonardo DiCaprio is playing Evel Knievel. I heard recently, for real.
Yeah.
No way.
But what were you saying? What were you saying about using eugenics to breed like perfect
epigenetics? Epigenetics. So like,
same thing.
I mean, epigenetics to create eugenics. So like in Israel, you take a bunch of people that were for generations not fed properly in Europe, didn't have access to proper food, weren't athletic necessarily. Actually, a lot of the time. I mean, granted, there were athletic. I mean, even in the Third Reich, several of the German Olympians in the 33 Olympics were Jewish. So obviously there are athletic Jews, but to then focus that point, making everyone in the state a soldier, man and woman, raising them with these exercises for 2, 3, 4 now generations, right? This is since the 60s. You've been making sure that these people are the healthiest, most athletic people they can be. And that makes a different kind of Jew, right? Like the Israeli Jew is a stronger, more healthy Jew than the Dark Ages would have allowed, or the ghettos of the early 20th century would have allowed.
When you reduce crossbreeding, it helps as well, and you.
Oh, really? We have to go there.
It does. I mean, sorry, inbreeding, not crossbreeding.
No, I mean, that's true. Exactly the opposite. But there's also truth to, I mean, I wonder about that because the people who tell you not to marry in with your family, I'm not saying that there's some anti-incestuous conspiracy out there, but isn't it weird that like the people who run the world they're all incestuous, like all the royal families by definition, that's the idea, is to be incestuous. And
the thing is that like I heard like last week there was this person who went on the news and they were talking about how incest should be allowed because
especially in Iceland,
even if there's a 57% rate and chance of deformity and like malformation and all that, well, those people deserve to exist, therefore incest should exist. And it's
is it some sort of a Masonic is it a foundling conspiracy of the Masonic foundling Oddfellows that they take over and they encourage royals to breed with each other so that they end up weaker?
If you have the problem is that the elite who do practice incest, well, they just kill the ones that are not apt, and then we have to not kill the
unrelated picture.
Well, I don't know how like the details of it work, but I do know that like there's a whole different like subset of abuse called satanic ritual abuse, and a lot of those people were reported to have come from like these rituals where they would say like
families.
Yeah, like breeding rituals. Like it's like my father would put me through these breeding rituals because apparently I had the blood of David or the blood of Solomon within me, and that was very valuable to create like whatever. I don't know if it's true. I mean, the whole like
I hear it a lot from a lot of people.
Who hears
would otherwise say it.
Late Night with the Devil? Anyone?
No.
Was it an A24 film?
I don't watch gay porn.
Yeah,
liar.
No, it was about this. It was just about a talk show host who was in like Bohemian Grove or whatever. And,
I saw this recently, right? Totally.
I haven't watched it.
Yeah.
It's a good one. It hits on all the things. The ending's a little bit weak. But
so I can't speak for the legitimacy of these rituals, but I do know these things like they're pushing. They do it. They try. Like regardless of whether the mystical part of it is real, the fact that like the courts have to come up with this whole terminology just because they can't treat it as regular, like with regular forms of abuse or
Right.
something. It's
Yeah.
its own very.
Incest is, I think, has an aspect of it that is part of trauma programming. So they, when you have children and then you sexualize them within the family, it creates this sort of delusion about how the world works and how the world is structured, and it makes you sort of centered towards the family. Love is incest. Love is that sort of overstepping
And the
of
Luke
boundaries.
and Leia complex that you're attracted to something that looks similar. Actually a genetic position.
If you and your family lack boundaries, then you're allowed to desecrate every other boundary in the world because there's no reason. It's just your family that matters. So,
But
wait,
wait,
you're really
what's
stoking that adrenal glands for harvesting.
What's the alternative to sex rituals with children, the military, drafting, conscription, and sports? What do we do then? It seems like each one of those is like one incarnation of another to bring it to a more socially acceptable place. Yeah. What do you do then? Because obviously there's some sort of a value to it. Granted, it's poisoning society and it's harming people, but people do these things and they're trying to create some sort of a justification that we don't want to kill anybody, so we'll make sports, right? Like, what's the alternative that we can create that's actually a healthier?
I mean, I'm not gonna say a definitive one, but there's one that we all know of, which is the Bible. Apparently, they offer the second coming of Christ, however that may manifest. I don't know if that's true, but
doesn't that feel lazy? Because you're like,
Yeah.
well, I'll just wait.
Yeah, the thing is, we're waiting. We're waiting for a savior. We're waiting for a savior.
Yeah,
You can wait forever.
That's like why it's probably not the definitive one, because it just requires I don't know, I guess.
Well, maybe it is the definitive one, but you can't wait around to find out. You have to make actions now. Don't be like, oh, there's no Christ, but like,
well, but then
that's
but you could interpret that differently. Like maybe the second coming isn't literal, like waiting around for the guy to come. Maybe it's actually manifesting through people.
Everybody it's like the Santa. Okay, so in Germany they do that. The Santa Claus thing here is slightly different. So Santa Claus is like a helper. There's St. Nicholas and then there's Santa Claus, and he helps with the presents. But your family give each other presents, and if no one remembered to give each other presents or they don't have enough things, then Santa Claus gives a present. But it's like a training mechanism that eventually you're like, oh, well, Santa Claus came and saw that everyone had presents from each other, and so he didn't really need to do any work here and went on to help other people, right? So it's a social uplift, which is also like more to the original form of Christianity, where Jesus is saying you're co-heirs with Jesus, and we're all working together to make this sort of heaven on earth situation. We're not waiting for some heaven on earth to just like land here like a UFO.
The problem is that the problem with the Christ consciousness claim is that people claim to just have it, and then they go, I have Christ consciousness, you do not, therefore you have to obey me, and if you don't obey me, then you're not Christ consciousness.
You know what? I agree with that.
A new form of hierarchy, a new form of control, and then it just kicks the can down the way because they go, no, that wasn't real Christ consciousness, and we're gonna wait for the real Christ consciousness.
No, but the opposite's also true. You also have people who swear up and down they're not Christian, they don't believe in Christ at all, and yet they don't stop doing Christ-like things for some reason. I know it's probably very
I know.
But that's also in the Bible too. The Bible talks about the people who say that they worship Christ, and they're goats. The goats who say they worship in His name, and the shepherd's like, you don't really know me. I don't know you. Get out of here. Whereas then he comes up on some sheep that aren't even looking at him. They're like looking at the ground. He's like, "You're doing great, worshiping me. Thank you." And they're like, What
are you talking
Who?
about? Yeah.
What? And they're like, well, because you fed me and you clothed me and you all this stuff. It's like, when did I appreciate it, but when did I feed you and clothe you? Well, when you were clothing each other and feeding each other, when you did this to the least of them, you did this for me, right? So it's the same thing. It's that they don't even realize they're doing it for God. They're doing it for each other because we are all the avatar of God, or we are the co-heirs of Christ, right?
Yeah, and also
it's like hipsters, if
you
you're
could say
hipster,
it's also kind of viral, right? Like we could say like evil nature, evil like frequencies could be viral. Maybe good frequencies could be viral. Maybe that shit is contagious too. Like maybe, you do something
at the very least through memes. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Or like, like helping a lady across the street, or like holding the door open for a stranger or something.
Yeah. Let's say, when you do that action, it spreads the meme of it. So like other people will see you do that action and they go, that's a good idea. And then they start doing it too. And like that whole inspiration thing. But that's one of the reasons why sports is important and entertainment is important. Mythological structuring. We deify people like Michael Jordan, but we need role models. Kids need role models, so they will turn to people like Michael Jordan, who achieve great things relatively, and then they go, "Wow, I can achieve great things relatively too." And then they at least
what about individual sport? Kurt, have you been surfing? Did you try boogie boarding or surfing or any beach stuff? Did you? As a Californian, you grew up without. I have no team sport like training really. I played hockey a couple times. You know what I mean? I played basketball a couple times, but for the most part, I'm not a team sport person. I had like surfing. It's
figure skating.
All the stuff that's on. Yeah, water polo I played too. Okay, I'm a white boy, but at the same time,
tried it.
That's a cool sport.
I liked it a lot, but I'm just trying to make the point that I spent more time doing non-team sports. Very much ideology of the surfer is not a team sport, right? And so I wonder, like, Kurt, what do you think of that? Like non-team sports, is that the same, or is it the team? Is it nationalism? Like, what is it about the sport that's the problem?
What do you think about Tony Hawk?
Tony Hawk, he's up there with like Steve Irwin in my book. But
that's weird. That's weird. It's like Michael Jordan, no, but Tony Hawk. I mean, he's a multi-billionaire.
Like David Blaine or something.
Commodify, people deify him. Of course, I think you just like him. That's the difference.
There is a weird dimension with a lot of sports, where specifically the team sports will create more like narcissistic behaviors in our society. It's kind of weird because you look at like Tony Hawk, he seems like such a humble dude, but like maybe not.
Maybe it might depend on personality type,
Yeah, it might. I don't know, but like when you all the cults of personality seem to come from like organized team sports. There's a lot you could extrapolate from that, I guess. But so when it comes to like sports and this capitalist framework of constant competition, it's like once we build up the framework of like we're competing against each other instead of competing against nature, I think that's one way to like interpret it as to why you get such different results from different types of like sports. And that's why, I just want to mention this real quick. I never thought you would think something like chess that we were talking about, it's a game where if you lose, it is rationally because you are less skilled than your opponent. There's
no excuses. There's no luck.
Yeah. And so, like, why would you get salty? But the saltiest people you will ever meet will be the people that lose at their chess games. Like, all over the world.
You can't blame your teammates. You can't be like, my point man sucks.
Well, there could be an aspect of that is like because chess is like an intellectual sport, and so people they use it as a metric of their intelligence, and they go, "Oh, this person's smarter than me. That pisses me off. It hurts my ego."
See, and surfing and skateboarding, I think, also falls into this where it's not a team sport, but it becomes a competitive sport. If you're surfing, you're doing it for fun. You're skateboarding, you're doing it for fun. If you're playing chess, you can do it for fun. But once it becomes a competition, then it's like how great you are versus how great this other person is. And maybe you can get used to being humbled by playing against the greatest players until you accidentally Beowulf up to being the greatest player. Not necessarily because you are the greatest player, but because the other ones die or quit. Humanity grows tired and weak.
I remember there was a fight not long ago. It was Tyson Fury versus Usyk. And you can see the different personality types in their fighting. Like Tyson he's a giant. He's like 6'7" or something. And Usyk is pure skill. He's a small heavyweight, but he's extremely, extremely skilled. And the different personality types, you can see Usyk is a very humble guy. You see that he's actually like very nice and he's kind, and you can see it in the way he treats others and the way he talks and the things that he likes even. While Tyson Fury makes it all about how big he is and how he can bully others and how he can be imposing and be the best and all that. While, like the motivations are different. And I think that there's a strength to the humility that is undermined by the grandiosity of those who want to be the best. Like the humble best is always going to be better than the one who has to scream it at the top of his lungs that he's the best. Like it's like watching Conor McGregor get his ass kicked is satisfying when you see it done by someone who's more humble than him.
Yeah,
but
but
change it to not being a competition.
Pardon?
Like if it's like, because the thing is like, so with surfing, you can spend your whole life becoming the best. Like Laird Hamilton is one of the greatest surfers of all time, and he can surf 60 feet waves, and needs to get a jet ski to tow him into waves because they're too big. And at a certain point, you compete against yourself. There is a point where you're no longer even in the same game as anyone else because you're learning how to perfect your own unique thing so much that you're becoming a yoke in this universe.
I think that what you get is different from it. Like I remember going snowboarding and doing I did a lot of one person sport back in the day, and it became more about the flow state. It was more about the sensation that I was getting when I was doing it, as well as the mastering of new skills over time, as opposed to I'm going to win the big thing, or I'm going to beat this other person, or I'm doing better than my brother, or anything like that. It was really just about going down that mountain and getting that dopamine and those endorphins. And it's the same thing with surfing. It's the same thing with even just drawing or any single person practice.
Yeah, I have this mantra when it comes to martial arts practice, because it's the same thing. Everyone's got their own motivations, and I always say, it's as simple as saying practice is the goal. And I don't know how I just came to those words, but once I just said it over and over again and tattooed it into my psyche, it just works out really well, because that's where the magic happens. Practice is the goal.
Yeah, you see some champions lose that spark once they become champion. They go I'm the best. I am the best in the world. I don't need to keep working and to keep doing the thing. And then they lose, and then they realize, oh shit, I do have to keep doing the thing.
No, I think it's when you first become the champion, that's when you make a choice. You're either transcend that, or you just end up in a recursive loop and you fail again, then get to that point. But once you get to that point, to really transcend, you say, you know what? The whole time it was just me versus myself. What Andreas is saying, it was it's the whole time. Once you become the top dog, and you're not going to stay up there. You're not going to be the best. Yeah, eventually. So you just got to find something else, and that's true mastery, is when you're practice is the goal. The whole time, whether I lose, whether I win, I'm still going to be practicing.
Michael Jordan playing baseball.
Yeah. It seems like progress comes from a willingness to fail, really. Because if you're pushing your boundaries, you're sort of admitting that you have more to learn, essentially, that you don't know everything, and I think that's how you really grow in your whatever your discipline is. You brought up Laird, Andreas, and he's constantly pushing the boundaries, constantly putting himself in situations where he isn't the best at something, and he's chasing imperfection in a way. And if you sort of resign to being the best, as opposed to admitting that you don't know everything, then you can't. And how are you gonna grow if you already have reached the top? Yeah, which is just, I think, really a reflection on intelligence. It kind of loops back to what Kurt was saying with the people getting upset at losing chess. It's that's really a reflection on how unintelligent they truly are. Because you could lose a game in chess and still be a smart person. It's oh, hey, that person just made better moves. But if you're gonna get butthurt about it, it's because you are truly an idiot.
What's the reason that we have to focus on who's the objective best, in the sense of, let's say someone is, a runner and they run faster than anyone else. So you say, okay, objectively, they completed the lap faster than anyone else, right? And so that's what competitively we're saying is the fastest runner, right? Why is it that we focus on that? What's the benefit of focusing on that instead of on the benchmark, instead of focusing on the most progress by an individual? This person is now 30% faster than they were last time. I think a lot of the time when you become obsessed with an athlete for winning the objective benchmark, then we go back and wow, look how much they improved to get to that point. They practice so hard, and isn't that the more interesting part anyway?
Well, but then by that metric, it becomes how young they are by the time they achieve the thing. So it's if they make slow progress, but they become champions in their 40s, people go oh, well, that's less impressive.
I also think that's really dependent on the complexity of the competition, because take professional cycling, for example. There's who crosses the finish line first, but there's also other competitions within that same race. There's who conquered the biggest hill the fastest in what team. And usually if you look at a cycling team, there's like the guy who just sprints, like the sprinter, there's the climber, the one who's really good at climbing. Then there's like the tank, you know, the guy who could like pretty much take all of like the wind, I guess, when they're like bombing downhill or something. Don't ask me how I know all this shit, but like, yeah, I think it really does. Even for runners, I'm pretty sure there's like different sets of competitions, right? There's like the sprint, there's the
long
Well,
run.
we're trying to find out how amazing humans can really be. You know, like we're trying to push those boundaries and see, wow, that's actually what we can do. Like, you know, watching a man lift 1,000 pounds, you go, holy shit, that is legit, like incredible. Instead of going like, oh, like that person lifted 300 pounds, but they weigh 100 pounds. That's impressive. But we go, the number not as satisfying. We need
that vibe. Kurt, do you feel the way they're talking about? Like, if you see someone who's run faster than anyone else in history, or someone who's catapulted or jumped, what's it called where you do the thing where you jump, the pole vaulting higher than anyone's ever pole vaulted before. I mean, do you see that as a benefit because we're seeing like the potential of the human condition, or is that not really impressive to you?
That's an interesting question, I guess. It's there are so many ways that you can express things that have never been done before, and so like there's probably an aspect of stuff like the Olympics that is just a little bit decadent. I'm not necessarily saying that
a little.
Yeah, not just because of the whole, you know, Saturn Last Supper spoof or whatever that doggy poo was. Like I'm saying is just like you can find unique things. You can do something no one has ever done before every single day. Like people that are, you know, inept, people that are disabled, they can do things if they set their mind to it. That in some ways only they can do because of their circumstances. And so, what is the ultimate point of the Olympics? I don't know. I think of my inspiration, Rachel Gunn, and her amazing performance. That should have honestly, that should have been a gold medal winning performance, in my opinion. You know, it's just
if you only saw how worse she was before and how much she improved by the time she got the Olympics, she would win the Olympic medal.
If you saw how bad the rest of Australia is at dancing, you would understand how she got there.
Right.
That's the thing. Like, factoring in handicap in competition, sort of, you go like, okay, well, that guy is completely like able to do everything. Therefore, we're going to give him minus points so that the other people have more chance. Like it becomes like that, you know. But you can't do that. You gotta, you know, look. Everyone loves an underdog story. When you have a handicap person who can literally outperform regular people, like people that are not.
We're calling Raygun handicap. She has a PhD in Lacan.
I'm not talking about her, but what I'm saying is, like, you know, Raygun is an underdog. If she turned around and became the best breakdancer in the world after that catastrophe, like if she improved that much, we would be like, wow, this person actually like did something amazing. But
we just don't get it. I like the better that the audience is stupid. You know what it is it's like all of it. We're just not appreciating her, and really, it's going to take 4 to 8 years for us to rewatch her performance and realize that
she's the Joker 2 of breakdancing.
No,
yeah,
sadly,
breaking.
Sadly, what's going to happen? There's probably going to be plenty of like copycats, and she's just going
to mold of breakdancing. Exactly, and that's what copycats mean. That it memed, and if it memes, then it is a legitimate choreography, right? She's created a new communication, and that's what her whole point was. Because you know her whole paper on Foucault, Lacan, and Chomsky and language and dance. I mean, she's like she effectively succeeded her goal.
She's like the Nikola Tesla of breakdancing, and eventually Thomas Edison's going to come and fucking.
But it's
crazy. Generous of Nikola Tesla is what she is.
It's crazy that we're just lowering the standard for everything.
I know. I was just joking.
It's so absurd to me that we I think the goal is to make people hate culture. but it just ends off as making people hate the people who are doing that.
Well, she didn't do it to the ballet; she did it to breakdancing. So it also is like it's not just hating tradition; it's hating zeitgeist. I mean, hating contemporaneous culture. Like, well, it'd be like if she won an award for the most poetic ebonics or something like that.
But there's some handicaps that actually are more beneficial. Like there's Paralympian sprinters who outperform actual people who have legs.
Well,
you know?
dude,
that's amazing. And that's amazing. We look at that and we go, that's incredible. I've seen handicapped breakdancers outperform ray gun like by far.
Okay, that's not the benchmark. No, I'm just kidding. It's fine.
You know what I think is really cool? I hope drone racing gets bigger. I think that's like a cool fucking sport.
Yeah, I love drone racing, especially the VR where you're wearing the headset and you're racing through the woods. I have some friends who do that in the redwoods, and they go to the same places that they shot. Well, this is like even 10 years ago it was a thing. Yeah. Because you basically go to the same place they shot the Star Wars scene where they're going through the redwoods on the bikes, and then they would just recreate that race with drones, and they have to go in laps and try hit trees.
It could be that the surrogate for war will be using drones and robots. So we'll have soldiers controlling robots, and then they'll go and fight other robots, and then.
But if your drone dies playing flying chess, you die in real life. You know, that's
it's like you have a bomb on the back.
No,
of your
I mean,
neck.
I think like it would still be violent as hell because you'll have the like in that kind of war scenario. I think the objective would usually be it's like, all right, let's find that little tent where a bunch of little computer nerds are huddled up, go in there and kill them, and like
no. But the thing is, it would have to be agreed upon by the people warring to do it this way. Otherwise, like it's like, hey, do you want millions of people to die, or do you want millions of people to die? And they both go no, and then okay, well, look, think of it like the step one before real war. You know, it'd be like, okay, let's test our tech. See, whoever loses, like back the fuck off, you know, or we invade you.
Well, isn't that kind of what the Greys are doing with their like biomechanical AI meat puppets, and those are sort of the pawns on the board for them here, theoretically, allegedly.
I have to take your word for it. You know, like, I haven't met one. I met a few, but I wasn't allowed to cut them open and check. So.
That's a pretty surface level narrative in
that comes right back to the crop circle thing we were talking about earlier. I was going to go back and be like, how far back do crop circles go? And
I watched Signs not long ago.
Yeah, right. Well, crop circles, they became kind of popular in the 1670s. I didn't realize how I kind of, the 1880s stories and things, but the idea of a man, and this is from the Journal of Meteorology. Is that right? John Rand talks about this. Where's the journal? I just had it open a second ago. Nature, Illustrated Journal of Science, talking about crop circles created by cigars in the 1880s, but particularly the 1670s stories. A dude who said he didn't want to get his crops. What do you call it? Where you harvest your crops? So he said he'd rather let the devil harvest his crops than work. He was so tired of working, or something like that. And then instead, the next day, everything was perfectly cropped in a perfect circle in these crazy patterns, and it was suggested that the devil did it because it's like he didn't do it, and it would look like some crazy geometric pattern, right? And that seems to be a major part of the crop circle idea, that there's spirits or entities that are committing some sort of technology.
Right. That's the entire basis of Signs, the movie Signs. It's about this, like the former priest who starts seeing the aliens, and then he starts. Bruce Willis? No, Nicholas Cage. Nicholas Cage. It's what's his name?
Joaquin Phoenix.
Yeah, Joaquin Phoenix is in it. Mel Gibson.
Okay. Oh yeah.
But yeah, so it's like he eventually, by the end, what people don't understand about the movie Signs is that he contextualizes the aliens as being demons. He's a former priest, and so what happens is his daughter has a bad habit of putting glasses of water everywhere because she feels, and so what it's implied is that he's a priest and he's been blessing all this water for years, and so when his son goes with the baseball bat and starts hitting all the water, the demon gets touched by the holy water, and that's what kills it.
Oh, I thought it was just water. I didn't know it was the holy water aspect.
Well, that's the thing. He's a former priest, so they're like,
That's awesome.
maybe in the moment he blesses it.
That's
It
crazy.
reminds me of this video that I saw with this hippie blessing their cup of coffee. They made this hand. They made this a bunch of copper wire into some magical shape or whatever. It was like an elaborate coaster that kind of looked like a crop circle, and they stuck their cup of coffee on it, and they were blessing it, rubbing their hands.
Wait, that's not bullshit. I just want you to know, like, that's real
That's not
shit.
bullshit.
Like
I know it's not.
Water apparently can store emotional data. Like, they did experiments where they were like, they fed like I don't know, the whole idea with like giving a plant like metal music versus some other type of music like classical, and it kind of changes. That has to do with the water.
Well, they did with cymatics.
Yeah. So
there's that legendary study of the guy yelling at water and then freezing it and seeing the different
like crop circles are climatic patterns too. So it's the other question, like, what is the deal with this idea of climatic patterns? Why are they, why are we seeing that? I don't know. What do you think about crop circles? Does that sound crazy, or is this into that climatic thing for real, or is this people just doing this since the 1600s?
I think it's a mixture. I think it's a mixture. It might be like a frequency that's given off by the planet that like emerges out of this, or
maybe another factor is gravity too. Maybe the way that they could communicate with us and through like from a higher dimension is
it could be like a gravity well effect kind of thing. Just suddenly it's
something crazy.
But
like pure sound.
There are fakers out there as well, of course. Like there's no doubt that some people faked it.
There's some weird stuff though. A lot of times they get like weird energy patterns. I've seen stuff where they
I'm like,
I was never like a huge alien person, but I knew people from New Zealand that were doing studies on crop circles because there'd be so many of them, and then there'd be all the plants would be bent in this perfect right angle, and then they had like ionic energy that they could check. Like, look, there's like a huge EMF reading coming from this crop circle, which seems like something kind of interesting, because whoever's doing that, if they're creating some sort of an EMF pattern as well, that just seems like extra work you wouldn't need to go through if you're just doing a prank.
If those plants are alive,
no, you have a documentary called Crop Circle Diaries by Patsy Greer. It's interesting because for a few years this was even banned on Gaia TV. People always have their own views on everyone, of course. But what she showed, together with the researcher, basically, is that you have two types of crop circles. One where you can clearly see it's mechanically made. So it's like, your high school or whoever is bored and goes out, does it mechanically. And then you have some which seem to be affected by some sort of plasma. And you can tell by looking at the crops, basically. But it seems this was not properly, taken up or researched further, and also at least temporarily somewhat shadow banned or whatever. So that's, I think, an interesting data point to the whole story.
Yeah, I find it funny because when people talk about like UFOs and aliens and everything, there's just been not just decades but centuries, it looks like, of these weird patterns in fields, and they can disappear so quickly, which is another interesting thing. Like, 'cause they make them in a field, but they're not like stone laser cut, so they're only going to last for that season.
What?
Who's that?
What? I'd be curious to know if synchronized swimmers give off an EMF reading.
Yo, because the shapes they make.
Exactly.
Interesting.
I don't know if they've ever done a study on it, but it sounds like
it's a good idea, though, to look at synchronized swimming patterns. Kurt, though, do you have thoughts about UFOs and crop circles? I mean, you come from Amish countryside. You're a countryside boy. You've probably seen some crop circles. What do you think? All just nonsense? Something to it?
Why? They're fancy. That's for sure. It's like
they are fancy.
I do think they're mostly done by people, but that doesn't invalidate them just because they're done by people. It's like they can be truly incredible things, but I don't know. I'm just not a crop circle guy. They're not my main interest.
I've never been a crop circle guy myself, but like for some reason now all of a sudden I'm thinking about
it's the cymatics that did it for me. Is when I saw the experiments of how like sand gets affected by and then I look at the crop circles, I'm like, that's a little weird.
It's
then I
such
think-
cymatic
Yeah.
patterns make it much. It's not just a picture of Rick and Morty's spacecraft, you know.
And what's even and it like it matters to me, and it's almost borderline unsettling because of how important cymatics are with water, and most of my body is like water, so it's like it clearly affects me on some fundamental level. And then I think
Even
about
if
the
it's
music
just
we
like the
listen to.
military, like if it's David Duchovny and Claire Danes in the military, and they're going out and they're making these sacred G. I mean, why? What's the deal with the sacred G? Who came up with doing these like epic? I mean, these are pretty intricate, like you said, intricate patterns, right?
It's just to confuse us.
Must be.
Yeah.
That's what it is. It's just to confuse.
It's
All
like
right,
it's
what
like
about
the
you?
dinosaur bones. It's like dinosaur bones. Satan put them there to confuse us.
It represents something organic, so, and I think that that's sort of what connects everybody to it, because cymatics are organic, but it's like how artificially organic is it is really the huge debate. And is it artificial if it's made by a person? It's like, does the source really matter if the end result is thought provoking or whatever?
I don't know what's an artifice.
Artifice?
That's a hell of a question. Yeah, I know, right?
Clever or cunning devices or expedients, especially as used to trick or deceive others. That's an artifice.
There we go.
Artificer, artificial. But the thing
well,
is,
actually, there is footage of them one being made in real time. It was like one of those glowing orbs floating around the thing, and it just silently just formed. I was like, whoa. Could be faked, maybe. I don't know. It was an old video though.
So an artifact is an object made or modified by a human being, typically one of culture or historical interest. So, I mean, I think that there is a distinction between artificial, but I don't think it means unnatural. That's the problem I have with people's use of the word artificial. It just means, a human made it. That's fine, Do
you know about like the Simpsons and Fermat's theorem, right? Where at one point they have this episode,
the donut universe.
He does this they put this on the donut, becomes half donut, becomes whole, because it fills the hole, and he does this mathematical theorem, and it's Fermat's theorem. The only thing, this is like a very small, like within a fraction, tiny bit off from perfect zero, and it was 15 years or so before Fermat's theorem was proved. And so all of these kind of reveals of math that we have, that millionaires, a lot of times if you're a mathematician, you can make $1 million or more off of a prime number or some sort of a proof, if you can do a proof. And so that they're not quite giving the exact proof, but 99.999%, as close as you can get to the exact proof, in front of everybody in a Simpsons episode, because they know no one's going to figure it out necessarily. And that's math that is proven by crop circles, essentially proven. I mean, someone was saying earlier, forbidden math, that if you were to try to calculate and understand the patterns in this math, then you reveal certain variable concepts that are formulaic and would otherwise not have been discovered by man yet, which is cool. There's all these things that you look at some math in nature, and then you base math on it. We use computers, and then we know something, and great, someone gets paid for that. It's just weird if it's not just nature. They're getting it from a crop circle. They're like, oh yeah, I found this pattern in a crop circle, and now I made $1 million off of the math proof for it. Things like that also make me kind of weird out by
the same thing happens from people who take psychedelics. There's loads of mathematical formulas that were generated through psychedelic use, and so maybe Gaia is having a psychedelic trip and she's making visionary art through crop circles, and that could be it.
Because Gaia gave us mushrooms, right? Same thing.
It's all the same system. So maybe like it's giving us a mathematical code through the language of crop circles, because it doesn't use 1, 2, 3, 4 mathematics. It uses flower of life mathematics, sacred geometry, sacred mathematics.
I was about to say mushrooms maybe also came from space, but I guess everything on this planet came from space.
Bro, we're in space right now.
We are space, bro.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's do a flat Earth thing for a second because of that.
It might be alien. It might be alien.
You guys know about Yakuts in Saka? Have you ever been to Yakuts?
Oh yeah, I'm super familiar with Yakuts. I've been there.
You would be, because you're from Canada, and it's basically the same idea.
It's
like Degrassi in Russian. That's basically what. No, Yakuts is up in the north. You can see right here. It's cold. By the way, I really hope you become an American, Vince. I mean, the idea of
I'm already
America doesn't count. I want America to buy Canada the same way Disney bought Star Wars. I can't wait. I'm looking forward to it. I want you to be a citizen.
There's plenty of stories that have a North American Union sort of grand
yeah,
country.
but the way I would do it is we'd have Mexico. So we have Canada, United States, and Mexico. CUM, cum, and it would be the cum empire. If you
Yeah.
think about it,
That's dumb.
it's going to be amazing. All right,
And
that
we will
was-
retain it.
Oh
Come
my
boys.
God.
How
Thank you.
fertile are we going to be after this?
Dude, the
Jesus.
Fertile Crescent, the new Fertile Crescent. Amen. So Yakutsk is super cold. Okay, this is what it looks like in Yakutsk, and
That's what it looks like here in Kentucky right now.
Oh, that's adorable. But this is
how
negative
Canada is right
70. This is negative 81
Like
degrees.
Siberia.
Would you say? It's like negative 81
Yikes.
degrees, and you can't even you have to have like a thing to hold your car running all the time, or else
You
it
can't
will.
even breathe.
You can't breathe. You can't wear synthetic clothes without wearing like actual wool underneath it. You have to literally kill an animal and wear it, like an animal that's bred to survive in this crazy place. And if your face is uncovered, you'll get like gangrene frostbite from your face freezing in 15 minutes, right? So everyone has to be in and out of the house in 15 minutes. And people have, epigenetically evolved to survive like extremely cold winters, and they live off the fat of like a yak. It's pretty crazy to live in Yakutsk. Anyway, this is what it looks like in Yakutsk, which, like we said, is up here. It's not like at the North Pole. It's not north of Greenland. It's down.
That's a Canadian Tuesday.
It's not. Yeah, it's a Canadian too. Look at this. It's right. Look at this. It's a little bit higher. It's about Alaska, but it's not like Antarctica, right? Like Antarctica is supposed to be super cold. Like this. Look how cold this guy is right now with his. What's up with Antarctica? Why is Antarctica? Like,
I know where this is going.
I'm just going. Okay, where is this going? Because what is the deal here? Why is
It's
Antarctica look so
winter.
freaking livable?
It's winter. It's winter up here, so that means it's summer in Antarctica, so it's sunny.
Global warming.
That's what it must be. And then 24-hour sun. So that was the thing. You guys know about the final experiment. This is this video. This guy went down there, and it's supposed to be 24-hour video. Now it's a 10-hour video. It's like he can't help himself. 5 minutes, 6 minutes. Here's like a bit of it. Eventually they're going to release this whole 24-hour video once they've edited it. I don't know what's going to happen here. But what do you think about the Antarctica Flat Earth expedition, the final experiment? Do you guys have any vibes or thoughts about this? Trying to follow.
Well,
this
someone
on
pointed out
24
some
hours.
fishy. Someone said some fishy stuff about it. Like in
They
the
did.
time lapse 24-hour video, there was like footage of a guy walking around, and apparently the way the shadow like projects from his position relative to the sun just doesn't make sense. Apparently, it's almost like artificial. It could have been like a 360 panoramic screen that's being filmed. I don't even know why I watched the videos like that kind of suggested that. It was just I just wanted to see. I want to see how far this debate would go like after this was released.
I mean,
we
my
got
favorite
Gate
version of the Earth not being a sphere is that it's like a petri dish with a bunch of little fucking lands all on the outside, the concentric rings or whatever. That's a cool one. I'm also open to the idea of it being a much larger sphere than they're saying it is, and there being more lands on this one. I don't know. There's so many different possibilities, and maybe if we all start to believe the same thing, it might start to take form.
I'm a big fan of that. I literally feel that's my superstition, that it's like more about what you can, a fact is anything you can convince 2 or more people. So if you can get enough people to believe a thing, then their biofields will make it the way things are perceived for a large enough field anywhere in that field. They'll all start to see it that way.
Reality, I think, is multi-state, and the Earth is multi-state, so it collapses based on who's looking at it. And so, if you want the Earth to be round, it's going to be round.
So I can also vibe with that idea. Oh, put me on blast.
Ladies and gentlemen, round of applause for Raphael. All right.
I vibe with that idea, in terms of belief systems, structure reality, all of that. There's a lot to it, but before it structures objective reality, it may well structure just your own optics and the way you perceive it yourself. And at least for me, and I'm not really invested in terms of what it turns out to be, but all I can say is once I learned about all these crazy conspiracies about it, whenever I look anywhere or look at any footage which is not from NASA, I'm sorry, I literally just can't see the curve. I'm sorry,
Yeah, it sucks when you're flying to like Argentina and you just the entire way just a straight flat line. You're like,
or even the images they're showing you here. I mean, does this look flat or what? Like I don't know.
with that like circle in the middle there too. Yeah.
I mean, judging from what kind of lens that is, if you put the camera up high enough, it may even look concave.
We're not allowed to put the camera up high. That's the other crazy thing. They have like this handheld drone that flies 5 feet, and they're like, "All right, that's good."
Did you ever see this this alternative map that shows like basically all of our continents surrounded by a ring of ice, and there's like a much broader world? Yeah, I love that one.
Where's
On
that
the other
at?
side of the UN map.
Yeah.
Land beyond lands or something.
World beyond
Yeah.
worlds.
Yeah,
Land
that
beyond
shit.
land.
Admiral
World
Byrd.
beyond world.
This
I
looks
like it.
crazy.
The world is a sieve map.
Yep.
I don't know. What do you feel? Do you feel where are you at with your epistemology? Do you feel like
Well,
this
if
is
it's a simulation, I feel like mathematically it would be a lot easier to simulate a flat plane versus an infinite three-dimensional space.
So my theory is that the world is actually flat because it's actually a CD. We are on Discworld, and it's all contained on a CD, and so we're basically in a computer, and it's actually a disk that's put inside a computer.
Well,
That's
I learned
software.
something new
Boop.
in one of my arguments with Frederick about the flatness of the universe, and how the same way that how the Big Bang sort of like radiated in a disk form, and all the matter is like kind of arranged in sort of a disk form according to the Big Bang theory. Technically it is a bubble, but most of the matter is sort of like congregated in
Like
you know, like a
galaxies.
blast wave. Exactly. Yeah. Just like that.
I like
What do you
that.
mean? Yeah.
So, I mean, technically, yeah, we are data on a disk, depending on like how much you explode your view on
A
it.
really
Like,
big disk.
Yeah.
At least more than one gigabyte. At least
feel like
maybe
this
these
is-
are
this could-
non-karmic lands. What if these are like the same these are like the planets Mars and Venus and Saturn and whatever. These are Greenland in another time. This is outside of karma, outside of causality.
my favorite flat Earth theory is that the Earth is actually infinite. That like the plane literally goes on infinitely so it's just an infinite planet. Hilarious.
that
The
one.
ice wall
That's
is
a good
if
one.
ice wall is time space, in a sense, because
Yeah.
Antarctica is this breakaway civilization. Then
40.
it wouldn't be a small island; it would be this huge world, right? And then so all of the land masses are essentially as large as the world collectively itself. And then these are separate realities or colonies, like you were saying, from different intelligences on some level, right? The land of the gods or something.
Yeah.
And then
Middle Earth.
there's no karma out there, so like as long as they're not interacting in our world, then this doesn't affect the timeline. But outside of that, then they can exist outside of time. Could be.
We'll get there
You got a
someday,
Mytho
guys.
class. Mytho class 237. Look up vibes of cosmos.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
On YouTube.
Okay. Yeah, let's go back here. Vapegate. Vibes.
He donated $2.37.
Isn't that base?
Canadian.
Kubrick it up. Vibe of the Cosmos channel. This guy here.
Yeah.
I'm not logged in, but yeah. So what do we look?
Popular, maybe.
What do we look? Popular videos. What should I show? World
The
map
world map.
presentations.
Oh
Yeah, he
man,
also
that
has
looks
the moon
juicy.
map. That's the cool one. He has the moon map where it looks like it's a negative of at least a part of the known Earth seems to be reflected in the moon if you invert it, basically.
Interesting. Oop.
Oh,
Okay.
and he's showing, even this, he's showing like reflection of the sun. Go back. This was good. Where you can see clouds behind the sun, basically.
A little bit of that
I like
Star
Sections
Wars,
of the sun. Yeah.
like
I
Tatooine.
like the idea of like the moon being a sort of pictogram where it's like a shadow box, like you know.
Really?
Sun is,
Because I much prefer the idea that the moon is part of this prison matrix that keeps our souls trapped on this prison planet to suffer
It's a-
and have our
well,
negative energy.
a way,
Pan
that is
optic
part of
fun,
it
too.
as well. Exactly. It's
It's
this film. It's
It's
a film
actually-
that
it's actually
projects our spirits
it's
and continents.
it's a giant eyeball staring at the Earth, looking at us constantly. That's my theory.
I think
Well,
the
this
sun-
map
the sun is
projection that the
eyeball.
moon is.
Look,
the moon is
if
looking
you've-
at Eurasia.
If you've never looked at the moon and thought it was an eye looking at you, you aren't taking enough drugs.
Well, if you're Asian, you think that it's a rabbit eating a pork bun or something like that.
Yeah. If you're British, you think it's made of cheese because of Wallace and Gromit.
These people have not taken enough drugs.
Well, all right. I like the idea that the moon is a cooling light. That's one of my favorites. The idea that
What's a reflector?
you've got
I saw that. I saw
the
that.
Tamil, the Vedic discs, right? So the idea there's multiple discs, multiple suns, multiple moons. There's black and white discs, and that the sun is a heating lamp, and its equivalent sister, the moon, or their sisters, the moons are cooling lights that are cooling where it goes over it, pulls heat up. And there's been even some evidence that this is true, that just in the reflection of the sun, or the moon is having less bandwidth of light, like less, the frequency of light is reduced. So it's actually pulling heat.
There's like a greenhouse effect in the shadow, in a moon shadow.
Like an anti-greenhouse,
It's effective on the waters as well. The rising sea levels would cool down the surface more. So.
Well, doesn't Neil deGrasse Tyson say it's because it doesn't actually raise the water? We're just traveling through a water bulge that's pulled by the moon's gravity, according to gravitational theory.
Same thing. It's the same thing. Yeah. Ultimately, it's the water. I mean, the
relativity.
The water's gravity is getting pulled by the moon, so that's what's making it rise.
And it also makes it crazy.
It's not producing more water. Like it's not like the moon is like making the water, like the Earth squirt. Like it's.
It's just pee. The ocean is pee.
Volcanoes are the exhaust pipes for our planetary spaceship. That's my theory.
Well, we're 2 hours deep. I got some thoughts about Greenland and everything else. Like we were saying, but
is it actually green?
Mars? You mean?
What do you think we should do about Greenland? Do you think that we should? I mean, and this is. I think you should.
I think you should put all the illegal immigrants there.
I think All right. Cool. Let's do it.
I heard all the conservatives want to go to Greenland. They're like,
that's the thing.
There's no Jews there. There's no black people there. We could all live in Greenland, guys.
It's a lot of conservative Jews and black people, so I don't know how that's going to work out. And Indians.
I saw that episode of Vikings.
No, it was. I think it was some.
Yeah, exactly.
By, Owen Benjamin. He was like, "Yeah, that's why they want Greenland."
Doesn't make sense. All right, but I mean, in general, we're talking about a world where if you make Mexico and Canada, I know I'm extending this idea here, but if you make happen, then Mexico, you won't have to send them back because they'll already be here. You know what I mean? Like that would solve a lot of problems if Mexico was just part of the United States. Then we could go after the cartels and everything else. Why not just swallow Mexico into the United States?
Yeah, we'll just go after the cartels. No big deal.
That's gonna be like if anyone wants to, it's Trump, right?
That's gonna be an ultra-violent.
The problem is obviously like invasion. Like you're occupying territory that's not yours.
Well, they're also extremely.
They'd have to find a way to.
Forces. They're just redrawing economic borders. No one's invading anywhere. It's just the economic borders are falling.
Exactly.
So everyone's spending the same money. It's going to be a new sort of. Whose face are they going to put on the money? Is the real question.
Yeah. It's a soft colonization. It's a soft conquering.
Yeah.
Annexing.
I just want to say. The occupation has occurred a long time ago. This is only, making it official, right? And also what has been a trope, both in, I guess, even channeled material, but I guess also lots of foreign policy documents or whatever, is this idea to just create 3 huge blocks, right? So the American bloc, the European Union bloc, which we're just joking about with the Schengen area, is growing like a cancer. It's not suddenly, but kind of suddenly, was very fast. You look at EU expansion, right? And then you have the Asian-Russian bloc, what would be China-Russia bloc, right?
Yeah, BRICS.
Whatever that's, good or
I'm down
bad
for an
or whatever,
American Union.
It seems to be following along a plan.
I'm down for an
we
American
use Bitcoin
Union.
for the Amero, pretty much.
It'll be called the 51st state won't be Canada. It's just silly. I'm down for North American Union. It's definitely going to happen sometime at some point. But
I would love to be able to travel to Canada if I have to, because I can't right now, because technically it's a crown territory, and I'm banned from traveling to crown territories for another 3 years.
And I guess, technically, that would solve
being a threat to the Brits.
Technically, that would also fix
What'd you do?
Illegal immigration. What do you do?
I accidentally had a non-detectable knife in my fanny pack when I was going through airport security at London Heathrow, and they take things like that very seriously. I counted all the tiles in my holding cell. It was pretty, not individually. I developed a formula for it, but
so
non-detectable.
You got a license for that blade?
Well, dude, they had these trash cans where it's like, just in case you have something, please throw it away. I totally forgot that I had it on me. I usually put it in my check bag, but I was wearing like 3 fanny packs, kind of looking very tactical with like, you know, a big red trench coat and like a cowboy hat. You know, I looked like Carmen Sandiego, but just because I was wearing everything that didn't fit in my check bag. So yeah, they tried to throw 10 years at me. It was pretty crazy.
10 years, wow.
Yeah. Yep, they take knives very seriously in England.
Oh my
Wow,
god!
they should tell that to the
Well,
immigrants.
they do, and they lock a lot of those people up.
They don't
like,
speak
but
English.
Oh, man.
But dude, here's the thing about
Culture clash.
jail/prison in the UK. It's like Club Med, dude. You can get a computer in there. There's people making beats. You can get a gaming system. You just like can't leave.
Do they give you Tim Hortons?
No, but they'll make tea for you 3 times a day and make it just how you ask. So
Yeah, but they don't arrest the stabby immigrants, so it doesn't matter.
It's probably pretty nice in there, yeah.
They just go, hey, you criticize those stabby immigrants, you're going to that comfortable prison.
Or you don't imprison your own agents.
Well, you do. Like, what's the name of that guy? You know? Oh man, the British anti-Islam arrested guy. What's his name? You know what I'm talking about? Tommy Robinson. Sorry. That was too late for my Tommy Robinson joke. But all right, we're like 2 hours deep. Let me do some closing thoughts.
Make it
Kurt,
4.
do you want to? Okay. Kurt, what do you think? What do you think about the police state we live in, or what are you thinking about right now?
I actually got to get out soon too.
Just take Kierkegaard's advice, and yeah, he was like, the goal of the Christian is to don't be seen, don't attract any attention. If you don't attract attention, yeah, you'll like law enforcement. Just at least in my experience, they kind of want to let you go if you say. Honestly, if you just like tickle their ego, like police officers can have either a lot of stress or a lot of ego or a combination of the two. And if you alleviate those, there's like a weird like gimp or a gimmick or that you can pull off psychologically. You're just like you just apologize, not in a braggadocious way. You just I'm sorry, officer. How are you doing tonight? Like make it a little bit personal, and they tend to be fine, to be honest. Like even if they hit you with it, getting hit with a fine is better than them finding drugs in your car. That's always a good philosophy. So remember that. It's
Survive corruption.
No,
Stroke
yeah,
authority.
defeats the illusion that we're disconnected from everything. Yeah, reconnect. Just remind yourself, loneliness is just this mystical spiritual phenomenon that it exists but doesn't actually exist. It's weird. That's all I got.
I like it. Loneliness versus solitude. Vince, what are you thinking about?
My prime minister is resigning, so Justin Trudeau's on
I
his way out.
know. Is that good?
Some good news. We did it, Joe. We finally, and things are moving here. Life's good, but uncertain. Like it feels like we're still getting like our leg pulled somewhere. Like there's something sneaky happening in Canada right now. And,
do you think Justin's goal in life was just to get the Trump administration back in office, and now his mission is complete?
It could be that, like this is sort of like long-term chess, like the goal of these people is to play their role. And so Justin Trudeau failed on purpose in order to bolster conservatives. And it's a back and forth like that endlessly, where they just serve the other side through loyal opposition.
I got people demanding right now to have video games not be woke, but what that really does is it just limits what games are, right? And people demanding, they're sick of like DEI, but that means like they're not going to be hiring people based on uniqueness, but only on merit. Like we're demanding a world that's going to be harder to live in, more just,
well,
but harder.
Look, The problem is that we've put too much focus on activism over like the actual thing we're trying to inject the activism into. We go, oh, what matters is the activism. Everything else is bullshit. Therefore, we can shit all over your entertainment and all over your mythology, and just go, well, what matters is the activism. But we're rebalancing right now. We're going to be into a rebalancing, and I think woke stuff will go away because it's going to rebrand and moderate, and so we're going to go back. Like not everyone can be Hideo Kojima. Okay, like not everyone can make properly like socially activist games with stories that actually matter, and it does nothing to just insert it passively into everything. So either get good or get the fuck out.
Right. What about you, Vega? What are you thinking?
I was just posting in the chat, in the private chat, the coin that Trudeau's crypto wallet was holding.
The NB coin?
Yep. He was holding a coin, and I think once that went public, he made the strategic move to maybe step away from. But it could be all sorts of things. Controlled opposition is certainly a factor. Maybe Daddy Castro was like, "Hey, we have some other plans. You should do this," because everybody knows Castro was actually an agent of the CIA. Maybe, or one sect of it. How many different CIAs are there? How many of them are working against each other? It's all a clusterfuck. Who knows? But yeah, I mean, I'm snowed in. I've been snowed in for days, having cabin fever. I want to hear more about these drones. I want to know whether or not they're artificial, man-made, or not. So there's all sorts of things that are up on the docket, whether or not things are going to be proven real or not. And I'm just very excited for the art and entertainment that this new administration is going to present us with.
That was I'd recommend watching. Jason Giorgiani did a thing recently talking about UFOs and UAPs and the idea that basically everyone was joking. They were joking about the Iranians being the UFO creators, and I was like, oh sure, the Iranians are doing the UFOs, ha ha ha. But he actually had a pretty good defense of the idea that Iran might have Soviet or Russian style Spectre computer chip that are unique and are non-radio powered and have recordings of geostationary positions from Google Maps or other open source alternatives, and that can fly themselves around those areas the same way a video game system can fly in a 3D model, a virtual version of that city. And the more correct the resolution model of the city, the easier it is that it could just autonomously be planted in New York City or anywhere else. And I think there's definitely something to that. I would recommend checking out that for sure. But yeah, thanks to Andrew. And Chris, how about you, bro? What are you thinking about?
Well, since we're at the end, I just want to say thank you to everyone who watched, and thank you, bros, for chopping it up with me, man. It was a good time.
Dude, I appreciate it. Oh, wait. This is the coin. Oh, man. I know this is like the wrong time to show it, but this is the coin that Trudeau had. Seriously? He had but token coin, and it's lost value.
I'm not surprised. It lost value. Oh no! What am I gonna do?
Justin Trudeau.
There's philosophy